Chapter 498, All of you are courting death. What is she talking about? Ajaya frowned and asked Wang Xian upon seeing that flirtatious woman scrutinizing her from top to bottom. She's saying she's going to skin you, preserve you, and use your bones to build her first bone puppet. Wang Xian smiled and translated for Ajaya. Ajaya had inherited the fire god's legacy and reached the budding realm. Yet, a brat that hadn't even reached the inborn realm was talking about killing her, removing her skin and building a bone puppet with her bones. That was truly courting her own demise. What? Ajaya raised an eyebrow and looked at the flirtatious woman before her in shock. Ah! At this moment, screams of desperation resounded from behind Wang Xian and Ajaya. Ha ha! Scumbags from the remains. When you guys entered Shangjing, we picked up your trails. Ambushing us? How ignorant and stupid are you guys? Today, all 10 of you aren't getting away. Inborn. You are an inborn expert. Scheming Dongmen clan. Haha. Nothing is scheming when it comes to dealing with trash like you guys. The aura of an inborn expert shrouded over and wretched cries from disciples of the remains reverberated. That young man was killing without reservations with the red sword in his hand. With his inborn level strength, it was easy for him to deal with this group of disciples from the remains who had not reached the inborn realm. What? Hong Niang, who had been scrutinizing Ajaya, was astonished to see 5 of her companions being killed when she turned around. Fear crept up on her. Despicable Dongmen clan. You guys are as despicable as your Laozu. Hong Niang's expression was hideous at this juncture. As she waved her arms, bloody red mist shrouded forward. At the same time, she fled rapidly. Thinking of escaping under my eyes? The young man with the red sword looked at her in contempt. He lifted his head slightly, flew into the air and lunged with his sword towards Hong Niang. Fuck you, Dongmen clan, all of you will be annihilated by us soon. Feeling the terrifying killing intent from behind her, Hong Niang was bitter. Die. Wretched beings like you guys that wear our human skin. The young man lunged forward with his sword towards the back of Hong Niang. Ah! Hong Niang cried pitifully and fell to the ground. However, a naked figure fled at an even more incredible speed suddenly. A cicada casting off its skin? She has discarded her human skin. The young man was taken aback. In a cold and harsh tone, he continued, Do you think you can escape like this? Holding the sword in his hand, he swung it rapidly. The blood-red sword drew a trail of blood in the air. Ah! A wretched scream resounded. The lips of the young man curved into a smile and showed a satisfied look. He turned around and noticed that all the other 9 corpses of the disciples of remains were now on the ground. Brother Liang, you are too incredible. How did you manage to guess that the disciples of the remains would ambush us? Haha. They would have never expected us to foresee their actions. A young man looked at the corpses on the ground and started flattering the young man with the sword. Haha. They are really courting their own deaths to enter our territory and go against us. Dongmen Liang lifted his head and smiled. As he waved his arm, the bloody red sword that he had thrown ahead previously returned to his grip. Brother Liang, you have grown stronger once again. That's the greatest escape technique of the remains, and yet she couldn't escape from Brother Liang. A group of young men gathered over and flattered him. Dongmen Liang kept his sword behind his back and smiled gently. From him, one could pick up a superiority vibe. He looked towards where Wang Xian and Ajaya were and his eyes beamed with excitement. When Hong Niang from the remains was approaching them, Dongmen Liang had noticed Ajaya. Attractive height and figure together with her breathtaking beauty. With the crown on her head, she resembled a noble goddess. Moreover, she was a foreigner. Even though Dongmen Liang had seen many breathtaking beauties, his heart was still set ablaze when he saw Ajaya. A foreign beauty like her was among the best of the best in the world. He lifted his head, wore a faint smile and walked directly towards Ajaya. Hey, pretty, I'm Dongmen Liang. I hope you aren't shocked by what happened, Dongmen Liang said to Ajaya with a face of smiles. She looked at Wang Xian, baffled, as she couldn't understand. Dongmen Liang was also taken aback. Noticing her confused looks, Dongmen Liang repeated it again in English. Ajaya understood but simply shook her head and looked at Wang Xian. Let's go. Ajaya nodded her head with a smile. Huh. Dongmen Liang was taken aback and his face quickly flushed red with embarrassment. The group of young men around him exchanged glances and immediately shouted to Wang Xian, "We saved you guys. Aren't you two going to repay us before leaving?" Oh. Wang Xian stopped in his tracks and looked at them with ridicule. How shall we repay you? Since ancient times, beautiful women would repay heroes who saved them with their bodies. In that case, just let the beautiful woman with you marry our brother Liang. Ha ha, a young man shouted loudly. The others around him nodded their heads in agreement. Their words were arrogant and their actions were brazen. They were too full of themselves. Dongmen Liang raised an eyebrow and didn't say a word. However, he was scrutinizing Ajaya from top to bottom and revealed a vile smirk. He's giving me dirty looks. Ajaya turned to Wang Xian and said. Their words are dirty and crude too. Ruthlessness gleamed in the eyes of Wang Xian as he spoke to Ajaya. Brat, what the hell are you saying there? Speak something that we can understand. And now, leave the foreign girl with you behind. Looking at their arrogance, Wang Xian shook his head. As he waved his arm, a stream of flames shot towards them. Huh! The young man was shocked to see Wang Xian attacking him with flames while he was still speaking. However, before he could react to it, the flames had fallen on him. Without any cries, the young man was reduced to dust. That ball of flames continued to attack the remaining group of young men around. What? Fear flashed in the eyes of the prideful Dongmen Liang who was standing beside Wang Xian. You! Why are all of you so eager to die? Wang Xian looked at Dongmen Liang with contempt. He waved his arm again and flames flew towards him. How is this possible? The young man was terrified. He released his aura and blasted it towards the flames. Bam! However, the flames weren't affected at all and fell on him. Boom! Ah! Dongmen Liang's eyes widened and were filled with desolation and disbelief. I'm from the Dongmen clan. How dare you kill me? Ah! Let's go. Wang Xian looked away in contempt. Regardless of whether it was the remains or the Dongmen sacred clan, or regardless of whether it was diabolism or the orthodox sects, there would only be one outcome if they offended him. Death. Chapter 499, Backyard on Fire and Equipment Refining. Don't take my arm and stop asking me to marry you. I hope you can write down the contents of the Fire God's secret book in these next few days. Wang Xian was walking with Ajaya at night on the road of Shongjing. He reminded her again when they were about to enter Sui clan's territory. Ajaya threw him a cold look. What? Is this a warning to me? Seeing how she acted, Wang Xian was helpless. I don't want my girlfriends to misunderstand. H, that's your business. As she spoke, her eyes were suddenly red. Hey, can you stop acting like this? It feels like I'm bullying you, Wang Xian hurriedly told her upon seeing her look. Are you trying to deny it? I followed you here and gave you all the treasures. You can kick me away anytime now. If I write out the contents in the Fire God's secret book, will you ask me to scram? Ajaya stared at him with tears welling up in her eyes as she glowered at him coldly. No, no. Forget it. Do whatever you want, I won't chase you away. Wang Xian went soft-hearted upon seeing her look. A peerless budding realm goddess who had obtained the legacy of the fire god had followed him all the way to the foreign land. If he continued to bully her, Wang Xian was really not a man. That's better. I don't need you to mind my business. You can't chase me away either. Ajaya lifted her chin slightly and walked off. You should make a turn over here. You don't even know your way, why are you taking the lead? Wang Xian shook his head. He did not understand women. Dragon King. Upon seeing the arrival of Wang Xian, the people from Sui clan greeted him respectfully. I'll go over myself. Wang Xian waved at the disciples of Sui clan on the way over and headed for the sacred mountain of Sui clan. Ajaya, on his heels as she regained her mood, looked around the Seheyuan with curiosity. Haha, Wang Xian is here? Sui Huang's voice was heard even before Wang Xian stepped in. It looks like your injuries have almost recovered. Wang Xian walked in with a broad smile. Xiao Xian. Guan Shuqing trotted over with a beaming face as she tugged his arm. However, her smile disappeared when she saw the girl tagging along behind him. She studied her curiously. No, calling her a girl was inappropriate. She looked more like a goddess. Guan Shuqing had seen foreign babes before, but it was her first time seeing babes like Ajaya, who was such a ravishing beauty. Tall and perfect figure, wearing a crown, and a truncheon in her hand. She had a special demeanor. Guan Shuqing had only observed a similar demeanor on Sun Lingxiu before. Unlike Sun Lingxiu, who was pure light, Ajaya was more like a proud fire that one could not help but take a few more looks at. Who is she? Guan Shuqing was on her guard as she asked Wang Xian softly. Her eyes were locked on his. A friend from Dubai. Her name is Ajaya. Wang Xian's lips were trembling as he replied solemnly to Guan Shuqing. Friend? What friend? Just an ordinary friend. Don't imagine things, Shuqing. Don't you believe me? Wang Xian forced a smile on his face. Ajaya, who could not understand what they were talking about, smiled at Guan Shuqing. Hello. Guan Shuqing nodded to Ajaya doubtfully. Sui Huang walked out and asked Wang Xian with a beaming face, Wang Xian, did you reap anything this time? Not bad, you don't have to worry about the art of cultivation. Wang Xian chuckled. With Guan Shuqing in his arms, they walked over. Seeing that his arm had already grown out, he said, I didn't expect you to recover quite fast. I consumed a lot of treasures. Sui Huang sat at one side and gestured to Wang Xian. Wang Xian said something to Ajaya, and she sat on one side. Ha! Seeing the truncheon in Ajaya's hand, Sui Huang slightly frowned. Sui Huang, what's the situation now in the underworld? Asked Wang Xian to Sui Huang while sipping his tea. Sui Huang shifted his attention as he slightly pondered. With a sigh, he said, it's very complicated. Everyone is on their own now. Wang Xian slightly knit his eyebrows. Is diabolism very strong? Yes, indeed. Sui Huang nodded. Diabolism, who kept a low profile for 50 years, erupted with daunting strength all of a sudden. Emperor Qi of Diabolism is going to challenge Nai Wushuang, the sect leader of Donghua Sacred Sect. Diabolism is frantically avenging the enemies of 50 years ago. 5 first-class forces and 1 sacred sect are down. The unparalleled experts from Remains even warned me not to take part in the grudges between Dongmen clan and them yesterday. Otherwise, they will bring a bloodbath to Sui clan. They are as overbearing as they were 50 years ago. Donghua Sacred Sect will be joining hands with some sacred sects these next few days to either suppress, wipe them out, or make peace with diabolism. Of course, that will depend on the war between Emperor Qi and Nai Wushuang. Wang Xian nodded slowly. How many sacred sects are involved now? 6 sacred sects and 1 sacred clan. 80% of the strength in the underworld is involved, and this is not taking the annihilated Shengling sect into account, Sui Huang said with a sullen face. 7 saint-class forces. Now, we only have 8 sacred sects and 4 sacred clans in the underworld. And yet, we have 7 forces involved in it. Wang Xian exhibited a grave expression. Sui Huang, do you intend to stay out of this? Now, it's not up to me to decide. But if Sui clan, Xiao clan, and Dragon sect can join hands together, it might be worth a try. Sui Huang said slowly. No, I'm not going to get involved. They can kill whoever they like. It has got nothing to do with Dragon sect. Wang Xian chuckled. You only have 50 disciples in Dragon sect. It's easy for you to stay out of this, but not Sui clan. Sui Huang sighed as he revealed a worried face. There were 2 lineups at the moment, Diabolism and Orthodox sects. Joining Diabolism was out of the question. But he did not want to join the Orthodox sects either. In order to annihilate Diabolism 50 years ago, there were no more than 100 inborn experts who remained in the entire underworld. If things turned out to be the same as before, it would be a bloodbath again. I wonder what Diabolism thinks. Wang Xian shook his head slowly. What do you think? They are nourishing themselves through fights with fresh blood, corpses, and bloodlust. All these things empower the strong ones. They are just a bunch of devils who have no conscience and aren't afraid of death, Sui Huang said with a sullen face. They did not want to participate in this war, nor did they want diabolism to win. If they won, it would be darkness for them all in the future. This was a difficult choice and also a helpless one. Come and look for me if you're in trouble. Upon seeing Sui Huang's troubled expression, Wang Xian spoke to him with a broad smile. Regardless of whether it was God or devil, they would only become corpses if they made enemies with him. Chapter 500, Equipment Refining and Backyard on Fire. Walking out from Sui Huang's room, Wang Xian sent Ajaya to another room immediately before bringing Guan Shuqing to another room. With time on her side, Guan Shuqing started examining Wang Xian and Ajaya. Wang Xian had long thought of an explanation. He illustrated Ajaya as a patient that required him to treat her over a few days. Moreover, he told Guan Shuqing that Ajaya was the Princess of Dubai and the Princess of Dubai wouldn't marry a man from a foreign country. Guan Shuqing accepted his explanation with doubts. TSK. In the room a short distance away, Ajaya faced Wang Xian's room and snorted. He's bullying me because I don't understand Mandarin. Learning a language is an easy task for me. As she mumbled to herself, she dialed a number and soon opened up a video conference. Several professional Mandarin professors appeared before the screen and started teaching her Mandarin. To the astonishment of these professors, Ajaya quickly mastered one after another phrase. Morning. The next day morning, Ajaya was at the door of her room when Wang Xian walked out of his room. She was wearing an earpiece. When she saw Wang Xian, she greeted, "Morning, her." Wang Xian was taken aback. "Good morning. How did you?" "Xiao Xian, my luggage." At this moment, Guan Shuqing's voice disrupted his words. Wang Xian looked at Ajaya, baffled. She had reverted her attention to her phone while he helped to carry Guan Shuqing's luggage. "It's time to go. We will be heading back to Rivertown directly," Wang Xian shouted at Ajaya, who was looking at her phone screen and wearing an earpiece. Ajaya nodded her head and followed behind them. Guan Shuqing was curious as to why Ajaya was constantly looking at her phone. However, she did not ask her. She still trusted Xiao Xian deeply. Moreover, Xiao Xian had explained a lot to her yesterday. Wang Xian was glad to see Ajaya acting in this manner. They took the plane and left for Rivertown. On the plane, Ajaya was still looking at her phone and didn't say a word. Dragon King. When they arrived at Rivertown, Mo Yuan drove the car over and greeted him respectfully. Since the dragon sect had been established, they had not been addressing Wang Xian as young master. Instead, they called him the Dragon King directly. Have all the things arrived?" Wang Xian asked Mo Yuan. "They have arrived and all the treasures have been moved to the floating island." "All right." Wang Xian nodded his head. "Xiao Xian, today's Saturday. Qingyu and the rest are waiting for you in the villa," Guan Shuqing said to Wang Xian. "Although we were only separated for a few days, it felt like 3 years." Wang Xian smiled sheepishly. "Look at how happy you are." Guan Shuqing rolled her eyes at him. Soon the car left the airport and drove rapidly towards the villa. "We are getting out here." Seeing Lan Qingyu, Sun Lingxiu and Xiao Yu waiting by the doors, Wang Xian said this to Ajaya. Ajaya nodded her head. She removed the earpiece and put her phone away. From her, a strong sense of confidence was exhibited instantly. "Xiao Xian, brother." Lan Qingyu, Xiao Yu and the rest immediately shouted. Wang Xian smiled upon seeing them and opened up his arms. "Hey, this is..." Lan Qingyu noticed Ajaya, who was following behind Wang Xian, instantly. She frowned and asked about her curiously. Any woman would feel a strong sense of danger from Ajaya. "She is from Dubai. I'm Hertha Mohakaban Sesid al-Ajaya. You guys can call me Ajaya. I'll be Wang Xian's future wife." "You are calling Xiao Xian brother?" 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 is just right. In Dubai, a man can have at most 4 wives. Guan Shuqing was smiling and prepared to introduce her as the Princess of Dubai and as a patient of Wang Xian. However, before she could finish her words, Ajaya's voice resounded. She spoke in perfect Mandarin. As Ajaya spoke, she stepped forward and held onto Wang Xian's arm. She tilted her head and asked, "How's my Mandarin, Xiao Xian? Aren't I incredible?" I've spent a night mastering Mandarin. Are you surprised? Are you happy? Are you surprised? Are you happy? When Wang Xian heard Ajaya speak Mandarin, his face stiffened. Looking at Ajaya, who wrapped her arms around his with a smile, his body couldn't help but shiver. Guan Shuqing's face instantly stiffened and sank. Lan Qingyue's smile had also disappeared. Two furious glares fell on Wang Xian. Wang Xian could feel dense killing intent and saw Guan Shuqing and Lan Qingyu clenching their fists tightly. Scumbag! Didn't you tell me she's your patient? Guan Shuqing glowered at Wang Xian and her eyes were a little red. This matter isn't like you. You are still trying to lie to me. Guan Shuqing gave him a harsh stare before storming into the villa furiously. Lan Qingyu had also turned as cold as ice as she followed Guan Shuqing into the villa. Xiao Yu was in shock over what had happened. Sun Lingxiu was also caught by surprise. She looked at Ajaya, smiled at her, and hesitated for a moment before returning to her room. Brother, you are doing things you shouldn't. Everything's on fire now. Xiao Yu stared at him before running into the villa. Her eyes. Wang Xian heaved a long sigh. I can accept you having 4 wives. It wouldn't do if you had more. At this moment, Ajaya, who was beside Wang Xian, remarked suddenly. Wang Xian felt like his head almost exploded. Hey, miss, can you tell me about the art of equipment refining in the Fire God's secret book first? Miss Xiao Xian, do you think I should get a Chinese name in the future? Ajaya was baffled, tilted her head and said, Oh right. Those girls seemed a little angry a while ago. I'll go comfort them in a while. I believe they will accept me. Wang Xian looked to the sky. His expression had changed greatly as he walked towards the villa. I had not expected him to have a mistress outside. He's a scumbag. He's the biggest scumbag. If she was Sister Lingxiu, I still could accept it. But he brought a foreign girl back and lied to me, saying that she's his patient. The moment he entered the house, he heard Guan Shuqing crying. Wang Xian's body stiffened, and he turned to glare at Ajaya before entering. When Xiao Yu saw her walking in, she immediately gestured to Wang Xian and asked him not to come any closer. Wang Xian rubbed his nose and went to Ajaya. Tell me about the art of equipment refining. Sure. I have prepared it for you. Ajaya took out a few pieces of paper and handed them to him. Oh, right. I believe you have seen what happened a while ago. Please don't give me any more troubles. Wang Xian looked at Ajaya and said solemnly. Leave this to me. If they can accept me, I'll stay by your side. If they can't, I will leave. Will this do? Ajaya looked solemnly at him suddenly. All right. Chapter 501, Alliance of the Orthodox Sects. Sigh. Wang Xian heaved a sigh and shook his head while looking at the villa before he headed outside. A man has a home that he cannot return to. How sad it is. But he had brought it upon himself. One must bear certain consequences of having his harem. Wang Xian walked to the sea. With a swift movement, he hovered to the floating island. It had been some time, and the construction of the island was almost complete. The buildings were all up and running. Treasure vault, elixir refining room, and now there would be a new addition, refinery room. Wang Xian revealed a smile on his face when he came to the treasure vault and saw a truckload of treasures. There were more than 300 inborn spiritual weapons, but all of them were, however, fire-attributed spiritual weapons, which were not practical to Dragonians. In addition to the myriad of weapons, the rest were fire-attributed materials. Using the fire-attributed material to make weapons would not necessarily refine only fire-attributed weapons. Still, it would require materials of other attributes to neutralize it. Wang Xian was unsure of the details. Wang Xian took out the art of blacksmith from the Fire God's secret book that Ajaya had passed to him. From the level 13 spiritual weapon in Ajaya's hand and over 300 inborn spiritual weapons, one could tell that Fire God Hephaestus' forte was refining equipment. His skill in smithing was definitely top-notch. The art of blacksmith was a long-lost skill in the underworld. As such, all inborn spiritual weapons were extremely precious, so much so that even sacred sects would treat them as valuable items. If Wang Xian could smith out different inborn spiritual weapons, he could arm Dragonians to the teeth. In addition, this could also enhance the level of Dragon Palace. Refine weapons using low-grade material to make high-level items. Wang Xian read the first line of the note and continued. Dragon King. At this time, Mo Yuan's voice was heard from the outside. Ha! He frowned slightly. What's the matter? Donghua Sacred Sect sent someone here to invite the Dragon Sect to join the alliance of the Orthodox sects. They urged you to attend as all the sacred sects, sacred clans, and first-class forces from the underworld will be present, said Mo Yuan. Alliance of the Orthodox sects. When is it? Wang Xian knit his eyebrow slightly. Tomorrow at noon at the Donghua ritual ground. Mo Yuan answered. Call upon some Dragonians to go with me. After some consideration, Wang Xian instructed Mo Yuan. Yes, Dragon King. The alliance of the Orthodox sects was equivalent to the underworld joining hands. It seems like the war between good and evil is inevitable. Wang Xian frowned slightly as there would be many unparalleled experts participating in the war. Since inborn experts were the main strength in this war, their deaths made perfect sense. That included unparalleled experts. For those who had yet to become inborns, they would be on their own to stay alive. Let's check them out. Wang Xian stood up and walked out. Dragon King. Soon, Mo Yuan brought 20 Dragonians to Wang Xian and greeted him with respect. Where is the Donghua ritual grounds? Asked Wang Xian to Mo Yuan. They are located at the North Mountain, which is the most central spot in the country. We need 8 hours to reach there. Get ready, and we'll set off soon, said Wang Xian to Mo Yuan. With quick movements, he flitted to the villa. When he reached the entrance of the villa, he tiptoed in. Brother. Seeing Wang Xian coming in, Xiao Yu quickly walked to him. What's the situation now? Asked Wang Xian in a low voice. What else? Xiao Yu rolled her eyes at him. In the past, I still thought of finding a boyfriend like you. But now, you might as well kill me to have a boyfriend like you. Hey. I'm heading out later. Donghua Sacred Sect is organizing an alliance of the Orthodox sects, so I'm going over later. Wang Xian asked Xiao Yu, are you going too? Yes, Master just called me to go over. I heard that Donghua Sacred Sect was not only the one leading, but there are also another 6 forces turning up. No one dared to reject. Don't go. Stay at home and watch over them for me. Wang Xian peered at the rooms and said to Xiao Yu. Xiao Yu rolled her eyes. Then I'll inform my master. Wang Xian nodded, stroked Xiao Yu's hair, and giggled. Xiao Yu threw him a dirty look. The 2 sisters-in-law are infuriated. You better go out and stay clear for the time being. Okay. Wang Xian smiled and nodded as he headed outside. Donghua Sacred Sect was the strongest sacred sect in the underworld, and it was recognized as the most powerful force. Nai Wushuang, sect leader of Donghua Sacred Sect, was the ultimate expert in the underworld. Donghua Sacred Sect was the one who took the lead in establishing the alliance of the Orthodox sects against diabolism 50 years ago. Today, the alliance of the Orthodox sects was taking form once again. When Wang Xian led 20 Dragonians near Donghua ritual grounds, it was night time. Donghua ritual grounds were situated in the most central region in China, which was next to a small county. Are you all from Dragon Sect? Just as they entered the small town, several young men in yellow outfits walked over and cupped their fists as they asked. Yes. Mo Yuan, standing by the side, nodded to the disciples of Donghua Sacred Sect. Please follow us into the mountain. We have prepared your accommodation. The young man gestured to them with a beam. Sure. Wang Xian nodded and went into the mountain of Donghua Sacred Sect. Several young men were staring at Wang Xian with curiosity. One of them hesitated before he said, I presume you're the Dragon King. Wang Xian nodded nonchalantly. Seeing his lukewarm reaction, these young men raised their eyebrows and kept quiet. Woohoo! Just then, 8 people hovered through the air and entered the range of mountains ahead. Let's hover over. Wang Xian gazed at the road ahead, which was several kilometers away before they could reach their destination. Given the speed of these young men, they needed to walk for another 10 minutes at least. Dragon King, only the inborn experts of our sect can hover in the air. Flying is prohibited for other sect members, a young man explained to Wang Xian with a broad smile. Wang Xian raised his eyebrows and said impassively, Donghua Sacred Sect doesn't respect their guest. Heh. Those young men chuckled upon hearing his comment. They had faint pride surfaced on their faces. Donghua rules supreme in the underworld. This is our rule, and the respect shown to Donghua Sacred Sect from the guest. Respect. A hint of disdain flashed in Wang Xian's eyes while he did not utter any words. Seeing Wang Xian keeping mum, those young men deepened their smiles and lifted their chins while leading them into the mountains of Donghua Sacred Sect. Towering mountains with flying cranes and cries of the ancient apes. Majestic buildings stood among the mountain range while water tumbled down from the mountain in the center just like a wonderland. Chapter 502, Lord of Sea Serpent Island. Everyone, this way please. A few young men gestured to Wang Xian and the group and pointed to a mountain peak as they spoke. This is one of our mountains used for welcoming guests. Everyone in the dragon sect can stay in it for the night. Wang Xian nodded his head slightly as he headed in. The group of young men didn't follow. They smiled and watched Wang Xian and the rest walk away. How incredible. That 20-year-old teenager is a Dan realm existence and created a sacred sect alone, a young man commented with envy. TSK. He just got darned lucky, the other young man by the side remarked with jealousy. Let's go. Tomorrow, an alliance between the orthodox sects will be formed. In the near future, we will have to engage diabolism in battle. At that time, please be careful, everyone. Under the leadership of Donghua Sacred Sect, diabolism will definitely be easily annihilated. A group of young men discussed enthusiastically as they walked away. Wang Xian arrived at the tallest structure on the guest peak. He looked at the yard from the door before heading into his room. Donghua Sacred Sect is really something. They have a dozen-plus guest peaks just for welcoming their guests. A giant mountain sect was established over hundreds of mountains in this area. How majestic! When Wang Xian entered the yard, he looked ahead of him. Raucous discussions reverberated from below. Wang Xian saw various sects entering with many of their disciples in or of the mountain sect of Donghua Sacred Sect. Even disciples from sacred sects were shocked when they entered the grounds of Donghua Sacred Sect. Sui clan was incredible and had hundreds of Siheyuan. However, they were nothing compared to the hundreds of mountains that Donghua Sacred Sect occupied. Donghua mountain range is indeed worthy of the name of the strongest force in the underworld. Below the mountain where Wang Xian and the group were, some disciples of other sects exclaimed in shock. Dong! 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 At this moment, the sounds of a bell ringing reverberated across the Donghua Sacred Sect. The bell could be heard from all corners of Donghua Sacred Sect. At this moment, disciples of Donghua Sacred Sect came out from their mountain peaks. Each mountain peak had a huge training field before it. Their disciples were practicing diligently in the training fields. A soft roar reverberated across the sky of Donghua Sacred Sect. Wang Xian stood on the mountain peak and looked ahead. He squinted his eyes and was a little shocked. The number of disciples in Donghua Sacred Sect is a little beyond my expectations. 7,000 to 8,000 disciples are distributed over 40 to 50 mountains. Moreover, their strength is on average stronger than most of the underworld. Even the area beneath a waterfall a long distance away was filled with disciples training. Each and every disciple was proud of their sect. Wang Xian looked on for a little while longer before returning to his room. He retrieved the paper that had the art of weapon refining written on it and continued reading. Ding! Comprehended the art of weapon refining. When he finished reading the entire illustration, the voice of the system resounded in his mind. Wang Xian's eyes beamed with excitement. It was just as he had expected. Name, Wang Xian. Race, 5 elements divine dragon, able to transform into a human. Level, 8, dragon energy, 19 634 210 100 000000. Superpower, dominate the marine animals, ability to rule any marine animals that are lower than your own level. Devour any form of marine animals, for extraction of dragon energy. 5 elements control. Art of cultivation, divine dragon transformation. Arts of refining elixir pills. Alchemist apprentice, refine all elixir pills with the origin source flame. Arts of equipment refining. Blacksmith apprentice, refine all equipment with the origin source flame. Refine all equipment with the origin source flame. It is just like the arts of refining elixir pills. Wang Xian was exhilarated. He knew clearly how insane his arts of refining elixir pills were. If the arts of equipment refining were as incredible, it would be a piece of cake for him to craft inborn spiritual weapons in the future. I've got to give it a try after getting back, and equip the entire dragon sect to the teeth. Excitement gleamed in Wang Xian's eyes. The night passed quickly. On the next morning, Wang Xian went down the guest peak at around 10 in the morning. As compared to the day before, Donghua Sacred Sect was livelier today. Several powerful sects and families from the underworld were touring the place or conversing. Wang Xian looked around and led the group of Dragonians to walk around the place. That is Dragon King from the Dragon Sect. He's the Dragon King. All the disciples behind him are the disciples of Dragon Sect. I have heard that they are young. Now that I have seen it with my own eyes, they are really unreasonably young. How great would it be to have such incredible strength at such a young age? Annihilating the two Saint class forces, Medical Saint Sect and Qiao Clan, the rise of the Dragon Sect was built upon the corpses of those two Saint class forces. The Dragon King is really handsome. To stand at the pinnacle of the underworld at such a young age, he's definitely Prince Charming in the eyes of the thousands of ladies in the underworld. When the disciples of various sects saw Wang Xian, they discussed softly. Wang Xian heard the comments from his surroundings and chuckled. He walked to the large cauldron in the middle and started curiously observing the materials used to make this cauldron. Level 10 material. What a shame that this is just an ordinary cauldron. The creator didn't know anything about equipment refining. Please make way. Please make way. At this moment, shouts could be heard. SSS. That is. Who would have thought he would be here? Oh gosh. Donghua Sacred Sect really has its weight in the underworld. Now that every sacred clan and sacred sect is here, he's here too. The Lord of Sea Serpent Island has a feud with the Dragon King from the Dragon Sect. The Dragon Sect almost killed the son of the Lord of Sea Serpent Island previously. The young Lord of Sea Serpent Island is also following behind. Raucous discussions broke out. Wang Xian raised an eyebrow and ruthlessness gleamed in his eyes. The previous time, that young Lord of Sea Serpent Island wanted to kill him. After he had managed to escape, Wang Xian asked Mo Qinglong to find the location of Sea Serpent Island. In the end, they couldn't find any information. Father, there they are. It is that guy. It is them. At this moment, from the back, the young Lord of Sea Serpent Island looked around proudly as he immersed himself in the fearful and respectful gazes of the crowd. When he heard the surrounding crowd discussing softly, he looked over and his eyes were filled with anger. He turned to his father and spoke with killing intent beaming in his eyes. Hai Jiao had the looks of a middle-aged man and stood at approximately 2 meters tall. 2 huge horns grew from his back and every step of his would bring strong water flowing around his body. He was just like a giant beast walking on the land. When Hai Jiao heard his son, he turned and looked towards where Wang Xian was. Wang Xian also turned his head over and stared coldly at Hai Jiao. Hai Jiao didn't say a word and walked directly towards Wang Xian. The dozen-odd Donghua Sacred Sect disciples that were following frowned and immediately rushed over. Other than that, there were 10 old men behind Hai Jiao. Each and every one of them had savage killing intent circling them as though they were beasts. They were all staring at Wang Xian and didn't bother to hide their killing intent. You are the so-called Dragon King? Hai Jiao walked to Wang Xian. His face was covered with hair and emotionless, and he questioned Wang Xian in a deep voice. Wang Xian stared at Hai Jiao and smirked. Are you here with your son to apologize? Chapter 503. How dare insignificant ants intervene? Apologize. You really think too highly of yourself. Hai Jiao glowered at Wang Xian coldly. You injured my son and killed my men. I was busy these past few days, and didn't have the time to kill you. Is that so? Wang Xian curled his lips. I sent someone to look for your island, but I didn't find it. If I knew where your island was, both of you wouldn't be here today. Boom. Boom. Tit for tat. Wang Xian and Hai Jiao stared daggers at each other. A surge of aura exuded from them. As the two clouds of aura collided, the surrounding space seemed to be distorted. However, their aura was not revealed in any way. When experts advanced to a certain level, they could perfectly control the aura exuded. When the two auras knocked against each other, none of the people around them noticed that the contest had begun. Hai Jiao was staring at Wang Xian with astonishment as he narrowed his eyes. The young lord of Sea Serpent Island clenched his fist and stared at Wang Xian furiously. But he dared not act insolently as Wang Xian was a compelling expert. He knew the power of a Dan realm expert, but he had no fear, as his father would be slaughtering him. Gulp. A confrontation. Will they break out into a fight? The second strongest expert in the underworld is facing the youngest unparalleled expert from the new dragon sect. If they were to battle, it would be another battle of the ages. Be it Dragon King or Hai Jiao, the two of them are almost invincible. They are the brazen existences. Unless one of them admits defeat or dies, they will need to tough it out. Seeing Wang Xian and Hai Jiao gazing at each other coldly, the surrounding atmosphere was frozen as the people around them were shocked to see this. Some of the experts from sacred sects also looked over with flickering eyes. Lord Hai Jiao, we should go over. Some of the young disciples of Donghua sacred sect hesitantly and cautiously said to Hai Jiao upon noticing the situation. Dragon King, please excuse us and let us through. A young disciple of Donghua sacred sect lowered his chin and said to Wang Xian plainly. This disciple was one of those young men who had received Wang Xian and his gang yesterday. Wang Xian looked at that young man with an eyebrow raised. You guys walked to my side and expect me to give way? Dragon King, Lord Hai Jiao is the VIP that Donghua sacred sect invited. You're in our territory, so please give way. The young man craned his neck up and told Wang Xian this before he turned to Hai Jiao and revealed a flattering smile. Ants. Wang Xian swung his arm and released traces of killing intent in his eyes. Upon seeing Wang Xian making his move, Hai Jiao remained unwavering except for his slightly lifted eyebrow. How dare you, an insignificant ant, intervene in the expert's affairs? Under the shocked and astonished eyes of that young man, Wang Xian grabbed his neck and stared coldly at him. Cough. You. The young man flushed with redness when his neck was seized. He glared at Wang Xian with a dreadful expression. You, this is Donghua. Bam. Wang Xian jerked his arm, and an explosion was heard around the limbs and elixir field of that young man. Ah. The young man let out a cry of horror, which resounded in Donghua sacred sect. I wonder how the mighty Donghua sacred sect disciplines their disciples. Such trash actually tried to taunt expert. Wang Xian waved his hand and hurled the young man out. Ah, no. My limbs, my elixir field. You actually crippled me. You crippled me. The young man who was thrown to the floor spat out a mouthful of blood. He felt his body shake with terror. His body was huddled up and his eyes were full of despair. His elixir field and 4 limbs had been completely destroyed. SSS. Dragon King actually crippled a young disciple of Donghua sacred sect. He's completely crippled. Besides, it's hard to heal injuries caused by such an expert. He's finished totally. He's asking for his own death. How can a young disciple of Donghua sacred sect interfere in the conflict between the Dragon King and Hai Jiao? Both of them are Dan realm experts. A fellow who is yet to be an inborn actually intervened in experts' matters. He's such an idiot. An ant is dreaming of interfering in conflicts between 2 unparalleled experts. He should count himself lucky for not getting himself killed. Maybe that disciple of Donghua sacred sect did not expect that the Dragon King would cripple him straight away. The surrounding crowd watched coldly as the disciple of Donghua sacred sect rolled and screamed in pain on the floor. Thinking that you are the disciple of Donghua sacred sect, and you can poke your nose in experts' matters? It would be okay if the other party was just an inborn expert. But you're digging your own grave by poking your nose in the conflict between the second strongest expert in the underworld and the Dragon King of Dragon Sect. In addition, you were still ignorant, trying to please Hai Jiao, who has made an enemy of the Dragon King. How can a disciple who is not even an inborn provoke such an unparalleled expert? Senior. Several disciples of Donghua sacred sect stiffened up as they ran to that disciple with panic. An ant has no right to talk. Hai Jiao swept his gaze at the young man before he glowered at Wang Xian. But I'll slay you for hurting my son and killing my men. Hehe, rest assured that you guys will not live long. Wang Xian looked at Hai Jiao and the young lord of Sea Serpent Island with a broad smile and unconcealed killing intent in his eyes. Great, I look forward to it. Ha ha. Hai Jiao chortled and walked inside with an icy-cold face. The young lord of Sea Serpent Island threw a death stare at Wang Xian before he followed behind his father. Wang Xian chuckled. He took a glance at the young man who was rolling in pain on the floor before he walked to one side. Several disciples from Donghua sacred sect fixed their gazes at Wang Xian and gritted their teeth in fear. What's going on? At this time, two middle-aged men flitted over with the daunting aura of inborn experts. One looked at the ancestral disciple on the floor and asked this with a grave expression. It was the Dragon King from Dragon Sect who did it. He crippled Senior Shue's 4 limbs and elixir field, a disciple replied with a dreadful look. Dragon King? The two middle-aged men frowned as they placed their arms on the young man with a darkened expression. It's completely gone. His life is finished. Why did that Dragon King cripple him? Asked the middle-aged man with a gloomy expression. Because Senior Shue tried to intervene in the conflict between Hai Jiao and the Dragon King. As a result, the Dragon King crippled him straight away. A young man wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. Intervene in their matters? The two middle-aged men had a change in their expressions as they fixed their eyes on the fallen young man. You aren't even an inborn. Yet, you tried to interfere with two unparalleled experts. Are you seeking death? Chapter 504, Donghua Rules Supreme. The young disciple from Donghua sacred sect lay listlessly before the two attendants of Donghua sacred sect as despair overtook him. He had not expected the Dragon King to cripple him directly. Over the last 2 days, he had received various sacred clans and sacred sects. They were all courteous towards him. Therefore, he had thought that the Dragon King wouldn't do anything to him even if he was trying to get on the good books of the Lord of Sea Serpent Island. However, he was too naive. He was naive to the extent of challenging the authority of an expert. No matter what, he's not showing any respect to us when he cripples our disciple in our sect. He really has no regard for us. When the two middle-aged men saw their young disciple on the floor, their faces sank and they mumbled, "Report this incident up." The two of them moved and left immediately. As for the young disciple on the floor, he was carried away by the other disciples. He's indeed the Dragon King. No matter which sect you are from, you will still be killed as long as you offend him. Around them, the disciples of other sects couldn't help but sigh after witnessing the event. Before the Dragon Sect was established, the Dragon King was already known to kill disciples of other sacred sects. The Dragon Sect was even established on the corpses of 2 saint-class forces. The Dragon King wouldn't care if you were from the Donghua sacred sect or if you were the second strongest man in the underworld. Dong, dong, dong. At this moment, the sound of the bell rang. The disciples of Donghua sacred sect guided all the sects towards the Donghua ritual ground. Everyone from Dragon Sect, please follow me. A female disciple of Donghua sacred sect walked to Wang Xian and spoke fearfully. In less than 10 minutes, the news of the Dragon King from Dragon Sect crippling a disciple of Donghua sacred sect was known by all other disciples. Hearing about the wretched state of their senior, they couldn't help but feel a chill running down their spines. An attendant and a female disciple were sent to receive the Dragon Sect. Wang Xian nodded his head, followed beside the female disciple and headed towards the Donghua ritual ground. Donghua ritual ground was 2,000 to 3,000 meters away and one had to cross 10 mountains to reach it. An incomparably huge ritual ground appeared before them. On the other end, there was a huge lake. In the middle of the lake, there was a stone statue that was over 20 meters tall. That's a stone statue of our Donghua Supreme Saint, the founder of Donghua Sacred Sect. The female disciple of Donghua Sacred Sect stole a glance at Wang Xian as she introduced it softly. Donghua sacred sect has close to 700 to 800 years of history. Am I right? Wang Xian asked. 873 years to be exact. This year is the 873rd year since the founding of our Donghua sacred sect, the female disciple replied with pride. Wang Xian chuckled. All the disciples of Donghua sacred sect had an innate pride and confidence. Dragon King, please find a spot you like. At the ritual ground, the female disciple pointed to a place that was relatively ahead of the rest. Wang Xian looked across and saw the Sui clan and Xiao clan. He immediately walked over with a radiant smile. Beside Sui clan and Xiao clan was the Sacred Followers Guild. Brother Wang Xian. When Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan saw Wang Xian walking towards them, they immediately exchanged greetings with him. The guild leader of the Sacred Followers Guild and their disciples also looked across. Sui clan, Xiao clan, and the Sacred Followers Guild each had 10 inborn experts that had come. Sui Huang, old Xiao, have you guys just arrived today? Wang Xian asked with a smile. Yeah. We heard what you did a while ago. You really are a magnet for trouble. Sui Huang shook his head and chuckled. What are your thoughts about the alliance of the orthodox sects after deliberation? Wang Xian chuckled and asked directly. We can't let diabolism take control of the underworld. Therefore, I have discussed with old Xiao and old Huang. If we can't avoid it, we just have to join in. Sui Huang answered solemnly. Wang Xian nodded his head. When one was in the underworld, not all things could be decided by themselves. Even sacred sects couldn't do as they wished in the face of the battle between the orthodox sects and diabolism. I have a batch of fire attribute inborn spiritual weapons. If you guys are interested, bring inborn level materials to exchange. It would be best if you have devil attribute materials. Wang Xian hesitated for a moment before informing them. In the battle between the Dragon Sect, Medical Saint Sect and Qiao Clan previously, the Dragon Sect had owed them a favor after they came to their aid. This favor had to be returned. Moreover, the 300+ fire attribute inborn spiritual weapons were too weak for him. Now that he had mastered the arts of equipment refining, he could rely on it if he could get a batch of inborn level materials. Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan were taken aback and were shocked. A batch? Regardless, I can equip both of your clans fully. Naturally, this is dependent upon you two having sufficient inborn level materials to exchange. Wang Xian said heartily. Brat, how did you get your hands on so many inborn spiritual weapons? Xiao Quanshan and Sui Huang's eyes beamed with excitement. These were inborn spiritual weapons that they were talking about. Between battles of two inborn experts, the one with the weapon would be certain to win. For a sacred sect, it would be rare to find 3 or 4 inborn spiritual weapons. Do you think I'm like you? Getting almost killed in an overseas trip? Wang Xian looked to Sui Huang and teased him. How dare you, brat? How dare you make fun of me now? Sui Huang stared at him and continued, do you really have that many fire attribute inborn spiritual weapons? Of course. Wang Xian nodded his head and continued, in fact, I have level 11 weapons that are above the inborn level. What? Weapons for Dan Realm experts? Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan could feel their breathing getting rapid as they stared fervently at Wang Xian. Bring your stuff to me to exchange. Wang Xian replied with a laugh. The expressions on the two of them changed rapidly. They were thinking hard about what materials they could offer in exchange for weapons they could use. The guild leader of Sacred Followers Guild looked at Wang Xian in shock. The female disciple beside him still pouted and observed Wang Xian with discontent. All right. We will bring the stuff over tomorrow. With inborn spiritual weapons, the losses of our two clans will be substantially lower. Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan answered in a hurry. Wang Xian nodded his head and looked around. He saw that over 30 sects had gathered in this place. In the entire field, there were over 10,000 people. No one was weaker than martial artist level 7. One could say that almost 95% of the forces of the underworld had gathered in this place. He looked ahead and saw an elevated platform near the center of the lake. On the elevated platform, there were 100-odd stone benches. No one was sitting there. The people from the Donghua sacred sect are here. At this moment, Wang Xian saw the people of Donghua sacred sect arriving. There were over 1,000 of them. In the middle, there were 4 old men with snow-white hair. One of the old men had a sword-shaped walking stick. 100 people or so walked towards the elevated platform. As they walked over, they were like an army of 1,000 soldiers. From them, one could feel a stifling pressure. Inborn. All of them are inborn experts. Oh gosh, is this the real strength of Donghua sacred sect? They are too strong. In the underworld of China, Donghua rules supreme. Sect leader Nai Wushuang isn't here. Could it be that sect leader Nai Wushuang is getting ready for the big battle in a few days? The surrounding sects were shocked to see the elite experts from the Donghua sacred sect walking forward. 100 inborn experts would match 3 sacred sect. Chapter 505, Mobilize everyone in Dragon Sect. A line of more than 100 people slowly walked up the central elevated platform. The old man who was holding the sword-shaped walking stick turned around, facing everyone below him. He swept his glance across everyone and revealed a smile at the presence of all the Saint-class forces from the underworld. I, Nai Wuya, will be hosting today's alliance of the orthodox sects as sect leader Nai Wushuang is in his cultivation, preparing himself for the battle 2 days from now, said the old man slowly. Behind him sat hundreds of experts on stone benches, among which, Hai Jiao took the middle seat, looking expressionless. None of them spoke. Wang Xian sat in a chair, watching them quietly. In addition to him having a seat, only the Dan realm experts of sacred sects could have a place. The rest of the inborn experts from sacred sects could only stand behind. I'm sure everyone knows about the situation in the underworld now. Diabolism is on the rise, and they have been going around, killing the innocent. They're unorthodox, fearless, gruesome and bloodthirsty. We'll not have peace for as long as diabolism exists. Nai Wuya looked at the people and said slowly, "Today, the Donghua sacred sect invited all of you here to form an alliance between all the sects and clans in the underworld. We will eliminate diabolism and restore peace to the underworld. Does anyone have any objection to this alliance of the orthodox sects? If no, the rules remained the same as they were 50 years ago. 50 years ago, every ancestral sect would dispatch their experts, including 70% of the total inborn experts, 50% of their total number of disciples. Would anyone like to voice out anything about this arrangement?" Nai Wuya swept his gaze across the ground. The sacred seas of swords will not be participating in the alliance. An old man's voice was heard. The crowd froze briefly before looking over to the source of the voice. An old man was standing straight before the sacred seas of swords. There was a chair beside him, but he did not take it. As he spoke, he was expressionless, with razor-sharp eyes. He had 5 sharpened swords at his back too. Ha! Nai Wuya's brows furrowed as he looked at that old man. The old man craned his neck upward and said, "The sacred seas of swords have been living in the sea, and we have rarely stepped into the underworld. As such, you can settle your own business. I'm here personally to make my stand clear just to give face to Donghua sacred sect." Ha! Nai Wuya raised his eyebrow slightly. 50 years ago, sacred seas of swords fought with us side by side. Are you going to back out now? Diabolism may not let you guys off. Why should we be afraid of diabolism when we're in the sea? A faint smile surfaced on that old man's face. Gazing at the old man, Nai Wuya remained silent as he cast a look at Hai Jiao beside him. Old Cai, the sacred seas of swords is, after all, a clan in the underworld. This concerns the life and death of the underworld. How can you guys turn your backs on us at this juncture? Hai Jiao stood up slowly and remarked with a smile as he stared at the old man from the sacred seas of swords. With you guys around, insignificant diabolism will be easily annihilated. Sacred seas of swords is staying out of this. That old man looked towards Hai Jiao with a frown. His voice was somewhat cold as he spoke. You can't put it that way. I'm also based in the sea, and diabolism has got nothing to do with me. But since the underworld is in trouble, I feel that all the clans and sects should shoulder the responsibilities together. Otherwise, The peaceful environment that we establish through our arduous effort will be enjoyed by someone else. This is simply unfair. Hai Jiao responded with a broad smile while watching that old man. That's right. The battle between the orthodox sects and diabolism involves everyone and every force. All of us should contribute to this. We used our blood to pay the road, and it's not for others to cross it as they wish. Nai Wuya stared at the old man and remarked plainly. Old Cai, in view of the current situation, the entire underworld is like a row of dominoes where one fall affects everyone. To put it bluntly, we're all in the same boat. If someone wants to jump off now, don't ever come back to this boat again. Otherwise, said an old man with a green coat from a sacred sect, Jotian sect. He turned to old Cai of the Sacred Seas of Swords. He did not finish his sentence, but the implied meaning was obvious. We don't know how many losses will we suffer from this war. In the event that we suffer overwhelming losses, wouldn't the sacred sect who did not participate in the battle reap the benefits without lifting a finger? An old man from Dongmen clan threw a cold gaze in the Sacred Seas of Swords direction. Old Cai darkened his expression when he saw 7 Dan realm experts from 7 Saint-class forces staring at him with an unpleasant look. Old Cai, this is the time for the orthodox sects to work together against the common enemy. I hope the Sacred Seas of Swords can join us, said Nai Wuya with a beam as he provided an out for the Sacred Seas of Swords in a timely manner. Radiance flickered in old Cai's eyes. Fine, but we faced a crisis earlier on, and we're only left with dozens of inborn experts. So, we can only send 10 inborn expert. Sure, as long as the number hits 70% of the total inborn experts, it will do. Nai Wuya nodded without expression. He knew very well that this was just an excuse for the Sacred Seas of Swords. But he did not expose this since their sect was situated in the middle of the ocean. Donghua Sacred Sect would not know how many inborn experts they had in the first place. 70% of the strength was just a rough estimation. Sacred Seas of Swords will send 10 inborn experts. The Donghua Sacred Sect will be sending 70 inborn experts, 4 Dan realm experts, and 4,000 disciples, said Nai Wuya slowly, taking the lead. 4 Dan realm experts. Everyone gasped at the number. 4 Dan realm experts. It's the Donghua Sacred Sect indeed. Dongmen clan, 20 inborn expert. Dark Sect, 20 inborn expert. Sui clan, 20 inborn expert. Xiao clan, 20 inborn expert. Heavenly Sound Sect, 20 inborn expert. All the sacred sects were unaware of the numbers of inborn experts each sect had. 20 inborn experts might have been less than 70%, but it was close enough. With several sacred sects consecutively reporting 20 inborn experts, everyone followed suit with an unspoken understanding. Nai Wuya nodded his head with satisfaction upon hearing the numbers reported by various sacred clans and sects. Then he slowly fixed his gaze on Wang Xian, who had been keeping mum. This must be the recently emerging dragon sect. It's considered to be unprecedented in history for a dragon king to possess such strength at a young age. Medical Saint sect, whose elixir pills marked the foundation to our victory 50 years ago, has been annihilated by dragon sect. Luckily, we still have the disciples of dragon sect around. During the Supreme Talents contest, disciples of dragon sect triumphed over 2 outstanding disciples of diabolism. Since dragon sect is filled with compelling experts, I think your sect can contribute more for the underworld by sending the entire dragon sect, as there aren't any average disciples in the sect either. What do you think? Nai Wuya looked at Wang Xian and asked him this with a broad smile. Oh! Upon hearing Nai Wuya, Wang Xian raised an eyebrow with coldness flashing in his eyes. Chapter 506. What has diabolism got to do with me? I have a question. For this alliance of the orthodox sects to eliminate diabolism, how are we going to act? Who will be issuing instructions, or will it be based on the consensus of a group of Dan realm experts? Wang Xian looked at Nai Wuya and asked plainly. I wonder if this brother has heard of the saying, Donghua rules supreme in China's underworld. This elimination of diabolism would naturally be under the leadership of our Donghua sacred sect. Moreover, considering the strength that our Donghua sacred sect is mobilizing, It shouldn't be an absurd demand for us to lead, right? Nai Wuya answered as though it was just a natural order to expect. Why are you asking my dragon sect to mobilize all our strength then? Wang Xian looked at Nai Wuya and questioned him coldly. Nai Wuya raised an eyebrow at Wang Xian and said with a smile, "This is mainly in consideration of the suppression the experts from the dragon sect could have on diabolism. Next, if the medical saint sect was still around, our battle with diabolism would be a lot easier. Now that the dragon sect has annihilated the medical saint sect, it's only reasonable that you guys make up for it. Moreover, the dragon sect has no ordinary disciples. Other sects and families will be mobilizing 500 to 600 of them and maybe even 1,000. Asking you guys to send 50 people isn't unreasonable at all. Hee hee." Upon hearing Nai Wuya's explanation, Wang Xian chuckled in contempt. He stood up and spoke loudly. "You should know about this too. Our dragon sect has no ordinary disciples and has just 50 inborn experts. In that case, why should I join the alliance of the orthodox sects and accept the commands of your Donghua sacred sect?" As Wang Xian spoke, he looked across everyone on the elevated stage. "With the 50 inborn experts of the dragon sect, who dares to offend us in the underworld? Would diabolism dare? Even if they did, so what? Is my dragon sect afraid? In the underworld, regardless of whether the orthodox sects rule or diabolism rules, what has it got to do with my dragon sect? Regardless of whether it's diabolism or the orthodox sects, none of you could affect our dragon sect. You want our dragon sect to mobilize all our strength and listen to your orders? What gives you the guts to even think of it?" Wang Xian chuckled and stared at Nai Wuya. As he spoke, he ensured that every word was clear to everyone. Ordering his dragon sect. How dare he? This. When the surrounding forces heard Wang Xian, they were all stunned. Everyone looked at Wang Xian and frowned. "I hate people ordering me around. Give me a reason for my dragon sect to join the alliance of the orthodox sect." Wang Xian smiled and issued the last question to Nai Wuya. When Nai Wuya heard Wang Xian, his expression turned solemn. He would have never expected Wang Xian to make such remarks. Wang Xian's lips curved into a smile as he stared at Nai Wuya. His original intention was to not join the so-called alliance of the orthodox sects. Yet, Nai Wuya wanted him to send the entire dragon sect in. This made him even more against the idea. "What rights do you guys have to order my dragon sect? Now that all the sects in the underworld are in, is your dragon sect thinking of isolating yourselves away from us?" Nai Wuya stared at Wang Xian and asked solemnly. "In that case, our dragon sect chooses to go our own way." Wang Xian met Nai Wuya's gaze. "Brat, I had thought about killing you, but Brother Nai stopped me and asked me to think of the bigger picture. Now that you are not joining the alliance of the orthodox sects." Suddenly, a voice that was filled with killing intent resounded. Boom. A terrifying aura shot through to the sky. A roar that resembled the fury of water seemed to have come from the sky. Hai Jiao stood up from his seat emotionlessly and stared at Wang Xian. "Ha ha, kill me? If this wasn't the territory of Donghua sacred sect, you would have become a corpse by now." Wang Xian laughed heartily. He looked harshly at Hai Jiao before looking across the crowd from Donghua sacred sect. Nai Wuya stared at Wang Xian as his face sank. "I have long heard that the Dragon King of the Dragon Sect is exceptionally brazen. Today, this old man has finally witnessed it. Crippling a disciple of our Donghua sacred sect, and now with your brazen claims. You really are young and impulsive. Hee hee. What's with it? I'm already giving Donghua sacred sect face by not killing the disciple. If you guys want to make us an enemy, I wouldn't mind either." Wang Xian licked his lips and stared at all the people from Donghua sacred sect. Arrogance. Really arrogant. That's 100 inborn experts and 4 Dan realm experts. Yet, he dared to make such claims. How ignorant and fearless for him to openly challenge Donghua sacred sect. Now that I have seen it today, he's really arrogant. Too arrogant, in fact, to have the guts to make Donghua sacred sect his enemy. The surrounding sects and families from the underworld looked at Wang Xian and commented. Rumble. Just as Wang Xian completed his words, The 100+ experts from Donghua sacred sect stood up. Terrifying auras shot to the sky as they stared harshly at Wang Xian. As long as the old man before them gave his instructions, they would definitely kill this arrogant brat. Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan sighed upon seeing how confrontational Wang Xian was. Now that diabolism is on the rise, could it be that you guys still want to start a battle of sacred sects? Since Dragon Sect isn't willing to join, why do we have to force him? If we push him to the opposite side, it will be greatly harmful to us. Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan spoke solemnly. At the same time, they were clearly expressing where they stood. The surrounding sacred sects frowned. A sacred sect not joining wasn't an outcome they wished to see. Since the Dragon King is so arrogant to say that diabolism has nothing to do with him, what else can I, Nai Wuya, say? For now, my only advice is to watch your own actions. Nai Wuya saw that Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan interrupted and knew that this wasn't the time for internal conflict. Therefore, he remarked coldly, I have a feud with this brat. Today, I'm going to kill him here. Does anyone here have an opinion on that? Hai Jiao shouted across. His eyes were fixed on Wang Xian and brimming with killing intent. I thought of killing you after settling this matter. Since you are looking for death, I will fulfill your wish right now. As he spoke, he moved. Rumble. The sounds of seawater tumbling reverberated across instantly. Hundreds of meters of seawater instantly formed behind Hai Jiao. The depth of the seawater reached over 10 meters and it was suspended in the air. In that case, I shall see who's going to die today. Seeing Hai Jiao attacking, killing intent beamed from Wang Xian's eyes. He moved and met his attacks. Boom. Scorching hot flames blazed the sky. Several hundreds of meters of space around Wang Xian was shrouded in flames. Fire and water instantly filled the sky above the Donghua ritual ground. They are going to fight. They really are going to fight. The second strongest expert of the underworld versus the Dragon King from the Dragon Sect. The people from Donghua sacred sect didn't say a word. It would seem that they won't be interfering. Doesn't the Dragon King use metal attribute? How did he release fire attribute energy suddenly? What a terrifying aura. The battle between unparalleled experts could really destroy heaven and earth. When Hai Jiao charged across and Wang Xian met his attack, the color of the sky changed instantly. Flames and seawater occupied the entire sky. Nai Wuya and the experts from Donghua sacred sect looked at Wang Xian, who was emitting endless flames, solemnly. That's definitely the strength of a Dan realm unparalleled expert. Hai Jiao definitely lives up to his name as the second strongest expert in the underworld. Even I am no match for him. That arrogant brat will definitely die. Nai Wuya thought to himself while staring grudgingly at the two men in the air. It would be best if the Lord of Sea Serpent Island could kill this arrogant brat. This will save us from further troubles, experts from some sacred sects thought to themselves. With regard to Hai Jiao being the second strongest expert in the underworld, they had absolute confidence. Killing a brat shouldn't be a tough issue. Chapter 507, Enemy defeated in 4 moves. You killed 2 of my subordinates. I'll annihilate you, then the Dragon Sect today. Hai Jiao stood in the air, 1,000 meters above ground with tumbling currents surging behind him as he spoke coldly. Annihilate my Dragon Sect. Immense killing intent flickered in Wang Xian's eyes as he opened his mouth and spat out his Dragon Ball. I'll kill you today, then your son. As soon as he finished his sentence, he dashed out to Hai Jiao immediately. I'll kill you within 5 strokes. Hai Jiao waved his arms, and 2 horn-like weapons appeared in his hand. The ocean tumbled into a terrifying being with horns. You're not even at the budding realm, and you dare to be arrogant. Wang Xian exhibited a disdainful look with the Dragon Ball suspended over his head. Flames from a radius of 100 meters were drawn to the Dragon Ball, condensing into an 8-meter Inferno Divine Dragon. The first stroke, Sea Serpent to the Sea. Coldness flushed the face of Hai Jiao as he held his double horns and confronted Wang Xian. Then I shall take your first move. Wang Xian's arm stretched to 2 meters long with terrifying dragon claws. The sharp dragon claws were heated to high temperatures. Bam! An explosion was heard as soon as the double horns and dragon claws knocked against each other. It was the explosion of water and flames. Growl. The moment they collided, the Inferno Divine Dragon above Wang Xian had already clashed head-on with the sea monster with horns. Boom. SST. The Inferno Divine Dragon seemed to be alive as it raked its sharp claws and bit at the horns. A dragon flame was spewed while a cloud of mist that rose from the seawater within 100-meter range quickly diminished. What? When he and Wang Xian collided head-on with each other, he was appalled as his power and the water energy in the air were diminishing at a rapid rate. Sea Serpent strike through. Hai Jiao grabbed the double horns with an immense amount of water energy gathered on it. He swung his arms, and two high-speed spinning water energies twisted together. The spinning water energy ballooned into a pail size, several hundred meters long, being hurled at Wang Xian directly. Sea Serpent, a sea serpent after all. Coldness surfaced on Wang Xian's face as he swung his hands. The Inferno Divine Dragon above his head swayed its domineering figure and charged towards the terrifying water current. Boom boom. As the water energy evaporated, the steam that rose up to the sky condensed into clouds. Drops of rainwater began to fall. How? How could he be so strong? Young Lord of Sea Serpent Island, at the Donghua ritual ground, was stupefied as he craned his neck up to watch the battle in the sky. That lad, who was younger than him, was able to compete with his father. He found this to be unbelievable. The Dragon King of Dragon Sect is formidable. He's on par with Hai Jiao. Their strength was much stronger than average Dan realm experts. Is this the strength of the Dragon King? He's indeed mighty. It's already been 2 strokes, and Hai Jiao is still at a disadvantage. The group of forces watched the scene in shock. Hai Jiao was the official second strongest recognized in the underworld. Yet he was only on par with the Dragon King of Dragon Sect. This Dragon King, back at Donghua Sacred Sect, Nai Wuya and the other 2 Dan realm experts were watching the battle in the air with eyes narrowed. Hai Jiao's strength is half-step to budding realm. That Dragon King should be the same too. He's a 20-year-old unparalleled expert, an old man could not help but exclaim. You want to kill me within 5 strokes? Wang Xian glowered at Hai Jiao coldly. With a move, he drew a long tail of flames in the air while he raked the enormous dragon claws at Hai Jiao. I said 5, and meant 5. Hai Jiao was infuriated as he bellowed with blue radiance exuding from his double horns. An ox horn image that complemented the double horns in his hand slowly surfaced from his body. Boom. The 2 enormous ox horns hit the dragon claws of Wang Xian. Hai Jiao's body could not help but tremble a little. It's a suit. A suit of inborn spiritual weapons. Wang Xian was astounded to see spiritual weapons complementing each other. It was a suit of spiritual weapons with several items complementing each other such that they could explode double the amount of energy that they'd be able to when they were on their own. Inborn spiritual weapons suit was rare, but compelling. 4th move, Sea Serpent Absorption. Hai Jiao revealed a malevolent look. As the official second strongest expert in the underworld, he had promised to kill him within 5 moves, and it would not go beyond that. This is the pride of an expert. He raised the double horns as the seawater surrounded him immediately. The sea began to spiral violently like a hurricane. Boom boom. Beside the Donghua ritual ground was a vast lake. The whole lake began to tumble. With the absorption of Hai Jiao, the water from the lake began to spiral up into the air. Sea Serpent Absorption. Gosh, is this the terrifying strength of an unparalleled expert? This is too domineering. Any inborn expert would be trembling in their boots under such insane force. Those inborn experts who have yet to reach the Dan realm were watching the sea serpent absorbing water with horror. It was like seeing a domineering hurricane, a terrifying power from nature. The water spun at a terrifying speed. Eventually, all the water from the sea gathered to form daunting ox horns. Sharp horns. Imagine seeing thousands of sharp horns spinning violently in the air, striking one at high speed. That would be hair-raising. Using energy to condense items. Isn't that what budding realm experts can do? Hai Jiao can actually do that too. Dan realm experts can use energy to draw objects while budding realm experts can condense items. The class of the battle has been raised by a level. He's no doubt the second strongest expert in the underworld. When he reaches nigh Wushuang's age, he probably can advance to budding realm. That Dragon King is god-damned mighty. The thing that could transform into Inferno Divine Dragon should be a spiritual flame ball. The level of a spiritual flame ball is quite daunting. Everyone craned their heads while gazing at that daunting scene from below. All of them gasped. Even Dan realm experts also narrowed their eyes. His means of attack and weapons are all at their peaks such that I could not surpass 4 levels to beat him. Wang Xian studied the daunting sea serpent absorption and took a deep breath. Roar. With a bellow, the dragon ball that was hovering above him shrouded him. On the outside, Wang Xian seemed to be swallowed by the Inferno Divine Dragon. Yet, Wang Xian transformed into a divine dragon at this moment. He stared at Hai Jiao, who was dashing at him with cold eyes. Traces of murderous intent surfaced on his face. I don't need 5 moves to defeat you. Wang Xian's body trembled, drawing a trail of flames in the air while charging at that daunting sea serpent absorption. Seeking your own death. Everyone watched with disdainful looks from below. The 500-meter sea serpent was absorbing the water, condensing all the water energy into razor-sharp horns. In the face of such a domineering attack, one could only dodge. Charging toward it was as good as digging his own grave. Chapter 508. You guys are keeping his life. The outcome is about to be decided. That Dragon King will be killed soon. He brought about his own demise. If the Lord of Sea Serpent Island can maintain the huge 100-meter sea serpent absorption for half an hour, he could destroy an entire city. The might of the sea serpent absorption is even more terrifying than a level 10 typhoon. Any creature that is sucked in will be ground to shred. Haha, kill the Dragon King. Since his not joining the alliance of the orthodox sects, he will become a potential issue for us in the future. It's best to kill him now. He is crazy to want to fight the Lord of Sea Serpent Island. On the Donghua ritual ground, the crowd was waiting to see the clash of the huge 8-meter Inferno Divine Dragon and the several 100-meter sea serpent absorption. Subconsciously, many of them were smirking. With regard to the newly established Saint-class dragon sect and the domineering behavior of the Dragon King, all of the other sacred sects didn't have a good impression. In fact, it was more of fear. They were fearful of the strength of the Dragon sect and the Dragon King. If the Dragon King was to be killed here, they would be glad to witness it. Wang Xian heard the discussion below him and ruthlessness beamed in his eyes. Kill me. He squinted his eyes and flames erupted from his body like a volcano. Die. Sea serpent absorption, sea serpent crush. Hai Jiao stood in the eye of the sea serpent absorption and the horns in his hands were rotating rapidly. He waved his arms and the sea serpent absorption clashed towards Wang Xian. Rumble. Endless explosions erupted as Wang Xian charged into the humongous sea serpent absorption. Flames gathered and formed dragon scales which covered his body. Water energy coalesced and formed sharp objects which resembled cow horns and shot towards Wang Xian's body. Terrifying shockwaves shook the entire sky. The clash of water and fire had resulted in a large patch of ominous clouds forming over the skies. Countless water droplets were gathering on the ominous clouds. When I transform into a dragon, I can even defeat budding realm experts overseas that possess battle techniques. A person who hasn't reached the budding realm in the underworld like you would be no match for me. Before the cow horns formed from water energy could crash into Wang Xian, they were instantly vaporized. Wang Xian swung his dragon claws directly at the body of Hai Jiao. What? When Hai Jiao saw Wang Xian breaking through and his sea serpent absorption not dealing any damage to him, he was astonished. Shit. Seeing Wang Xian charging towards him rapidly, Hai Jiao could feel his heart wrenching. Grr. Sea serpent strike. Hai Jiao opened his mouth and spat a mouthful of blood on the horns in his hands. Instantly, they glowed an even brighter shade of blue. Within the sea serpent absorption, thousands and thousands of horns gathered together to form a terrifying huge horn. Extravagant and impractical. Your battle technique is a far cry from those experts overseas. Wang Dahai lowered his head slightly after seeing Hai Jiao's attack. His dragon horns glowed with a dull shade of red as he charged directly towards the giant cow horn formed from water energy. Bam! The dragon horns penetrated through and Wang Xian didn't stop for a moment. He immediately swung his dragon claws at Hai Jiao. Ah! Two wretched cries came from the sky. Hai Jiao's body was falling towards the ritual ground of Donghua sacred sect at a terrifying speed. Boom! A loud explosion reverberated from the ritual ground. In the middle of the ritual ground, a huge 5-meter hole that was over a dozen meters deep could be seen. Around it, a network of terrifying cracks had surfaced. You! Defeating me in 5 moves? At this moment, Wang Xian's voice resounded from the sky. How can this be possible? It can't be. The Lord of Sea Serpent Island is defeated. The second strongest expert of the underworld is defeated. SSS. This. In the Donghua ritual ground, everyone was in disbelief when they saw the figure in the deep hole and Wang Xian in the sky. The attack that the Lord of Sea Serpent Island had released previously was capable of destroying heaven and earth. Yet, he had been defeated. Defeated with relative ease. If everyone had gotten it right, the two of them had just exchanged 4 moves. No one would have expected the Lord of Sea Serpent Island to be defeated in 4 moves. This made them look exceptionally bitter. The Lord of Sea Serpent Island, who they had high hopes for, the second strongest expert in the underworld and the one who was even stronger than all of them, was defeated by the Dragon King. A red flame was emitted from Wang Xian's body. He lowered his head and looked down on the Lord of Sea Serpent Island who was lying in the deep hole. Kill me. With what you are capable of. Wang Xian's emotionless voice rang throughout the entire Donghua ritual ground. His lips curved into a smirk as he descended towards the ground. No. This isn't possible. My father wouldn't lose. He couldn't have been defeated. The young Lord of Sea Serpent Island was in denial as he screamed in horror. Cough cough. At this moment, a violent cough came from the deep hole and a figure crawled out of it gradually. At this moment, the Lord of Sea Serpent Island was in wretched shape. At his chest, TWP deep wounds had even reached his bones. Around the wound, the tissue was burnt black. There were still traces of fire sparks burning. His hair was scattered and the neatly trimmed beard was now torched. He looked extremely pathetic at this moment. As compared to the domineering and majestic look previously, it was as though this was another person. Hai Jiao's legs were shivering a little while he stared at Wang Xian. His expression had changed drastically. When your son tried to kill me some time ago, your outcome had been decided. Wang Xian landed on the ground and stared at the Lord of Sea Serpent Island with smiles. Besides that, I'm not the brazen one. It is you who are. Killing me within 5 moves? How ironic. As Wang Xian spoke, a fire sword appeared in his hand. The fire sword rotated gradually as it slashed towards the head of Hai Jiao in an instant. Fear gleamed in the eyes of the Lord of Sea Serpent Island as his body shivered. Bam! Dragon King, the outcome has been decided. Let's end it here. At this moment, a sword-shaped walking stick appeared before the fire sword and stopped it in the process. The voice of Nai Wuya reached him. Wang Xian squinted his eyes, turned over and looked fearlessly at Nai Wuya who was on the elevated stage. You are going to stop me from killing him? Wang Xian asked Nai Wuya coldly. With diabolism on the rise and chaos everywhere, the Lord of Sea Serpent Island is part of our alliance of the orthodox sects. You are going to stop me from killing him? Wang Xian interrupted him and questioned once again. Dragon King, this is the territory of our Donghua sacred sect and the Lord of Sea Serpent Island is a guest of ours. He is also the main force in the alliance of the orthodox sects. You can't kill him. Nai Wushuang looked solemnly at Wang Xian and replied. In that case, do you know the price of protecting him? Wang Xian stared harshly at Nai Wushuang. Price? What? Could it be that your dragon sect would make us, Donghua sacred sect, your enemy and become the enemy of the alliance of the orthodox sects? Hearing Wang Xian's highly confrontational demands, Nai Wushuang pulled a long face and answered. It isn't I who wants you as my enemy. It is you, Donghua sacred sect, who want my dragon sect as your enemy. Chapter 509, There's no rest for an enemy except death. It isn't I who wants you as my enemy. It is you, Donghua Sacred Sect, who want Dragon Sect to become your enemy. Wang Xian's icy tone resonated in the ritual ground, causing everyone to gasp in terror. All the Saint-class forces stared at Wang Xian with flickering eyes. Just as always. When Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan heard that, they shook their heads at Wang Xian, who was glowering at Donghua Sacred Sect. As always, he was fearless of any forces and existences. Sacred Followers Guild Elders, kill. Disciples of Medical Saint Sect, kill. The entire Medical Saint Sect, annihilate. Qiao Clan, annihilate. Now he tried to kill Hai Jiao, the second strongest expert of the underworld, and make himself an enemy with Donghua Sacred Sect. All the surrounding Saint-class forces stared at Wang Xian with flickering eyes. None of them uttered a word. They finally got some understanding of how this Dragon King worked. Do not provoke me. Whoever provokes me, there is only one word, battle. Nai Wuya and the bunch of experts from Donghua Sacred Sect were infuriated as they exploded bouts of murderous aura. So what if Donghua Sacred Sect is making an enemy with Dragon Sect? Said Nai Wuya as he stared daggers at Wang Xian with eyes full of coldness and killing intent. There's no rest for an enemy except death. If Donghua Sacred Sect is determined to protect Hai Jiao today, we'll see each other on the battlefield. Wang Xian answered coldly as he glared at Nai Wuya without wanting to lose out. Fine. What a brazen fellow. Since you're insolent, you shall stay here today, a Dan Realm old man beside Nai Wuya bellowed as he gave out a daunting radiance that pointed at Wang Xian. No rest for us. A Dragon Sect dared to have no rest with Donghua Sacred Sect. Another Dan Realm expert stood up with double blades hung at his waist. The moment he exuded his aura, the two blades gave out a buzzing sound. 3 Dan Realm experts let out a daunting vibe, trying to oppress Wang Xian. Hehe, it looks like you guys already made a decision. Wang Xian exhibited a contemptuous smile. I have no grudges with Donghua Sacred Sect. But since you guys want to make an enemy with Dragon Sect, we'll gladly accept. As he spoke, he stared at the 3 old men. You guys aren't my match yet. Wang Xian swept his disdainful gaze across all the people from Donghua Sacred Sect. Eventually, he stopped at Hai Jiao and curled his lips. Since Donghua Sacred Sect is protecting you this time, I'll kill you another time. Hehe, rest assured that it will not be too long. As he spoke, Wang Xian spun around, looking slack. He commanded the rest of the Dragonians, let's go. All the people from Donghua Sacred Sect clenched their fists tightly with glistening eyes. They were hesitating as to whether they wanted to strike. At this time, Wang Xian suddenly whirled around and looked across all the hundreds of Donghua Sacred Sect experts. If you guys cannot keep me here today, then Dragon Sect will be your nightmare from now on. Haha. Wang Xian chortled as he stalked out. Upon hearing Wang Xian, people from Donghua Sacred Sect were looking dreadful. Radiance flickered in Nai Wuya's eyes as he held the sword-like truncheon tightly in his hand. The atmosphere suddenly froze as all the surrounding Saint-class forces watched with solemn expressions. Apparently, Donghua Sacred Sect was out to protect Hai Jiao, and they had completely angered the Dragon King. Besides, Dragon King had made it clear that the Donghua Sacred Sect was going to make an enemy with them. There is no rest for an enemy except death. If it were other sacred sects who said the same thing, they probably would be contemptuous. But this was said by the Dragon King, the one who would slaughter anyone who provoked him. No one would doubt what the Dragon King said. Keep him here, the old man beside Nai Wuya gritted his teeth and said with murderous eyes. Nai Wuya darkened his expression as he looked at all the Dan Realm experts of sacred sects. All the Dan Realm experts of the sacred sects watched indifferently as it was not their business. Since sect leader is not around, we might not be able to stop him given our combined strength. Nai Wuya clenched his fist tightly and spoke in a dull voice. The strength that the Dragon King had demonstrated was compelling, such that everyone was wary of him. He used 4 strokes to beat the second strongest man in the underworld. The rest of the sacred sects dared not meddle in this due to Wang Xian's daunting combat power. Unlike Donghua Sacred Sect, they did not have the strongest expert of the underworld in their sects. Even though they hoped Dragon's sect could be annihilated, and the Dragon King could be slain, they were unwilling to take the risk. If they could not keep the Dragon King here today, an unparalleled expert would lead his inborn experts to assassinate the sacred sect disciples without stopping. None of the sacred sects or sacred clans could take such daunting power. Without exaggeration, Dragon sect was currently the strongest in the underworld, apart from Donghua sacred sect. And the Dragon King would be the second strongest. The two old men beside Nai Wuya had sullen faces with eyes fixed on the departing figure. They were not confident in holding the Dragon King here. At his realm, it was hard to keep experts like him if he was determined to escape. Given Dragon sect strength, they make a good enemy of the four main devil sects, said Nai Wuya in a dull voice. He gazed around at all the ancestral sects and clans below the platform and heaved a deep sigh. His mood was extremely bad. Donghua sacred sect did not expect that they would make enemies with a formidable opponent. He threw a glance at Hai Jiao, who was severely injured, and took a deep breath. The alliance of the orthodox sects had to carry on. As for Dragon sect, Donghua sacred sect was not that concerned even though they were mighty. In fact, their sect leader was not here today. When their sect leader killed Emperor Qi from diabolism, it would be the time to annihilate Dragon sect. Donghua sacred sect, he. After Wang Xian walked out of Donghua sacred sect, he had a trace of coldness surfacing in his eyes. The moment he had entered Donghua sacred sect yesterday, Wang Xian did not have a good impression of Donghua sacred sect. They only allowed their own experts to hover in the air while the remaining clans and sects had to be on foot. In today's meeting, all their inborn experts were seated while the rest of the inborn experts from other sacred sects had to stand. The entire arrogant and prideful performance irked Wang Xian. Hence, he did not have any good impression of this ancestral sect. On top of that, they involved themselves in Hai Jiao's matter too. Since they want to have a game, I'll play with them. The establishment of Dragon sect was to awe the underworld. Wang Xian narrowed his eyes and asked Mo Yuan in a dull voice, "Where are those Dragonians of the Abyss?" "Dragon King, 7 of them are still operating the Abyss. In the face of the battles between diabolism and orthodox sects, there are many missions for killing diabolism. Now they are busy earning the spiritual stones. They even asked me for more manpower a few days ago." Mo Yuan replied with a broad smile. "If that's the case, you'll take over the Abyss and lead all the disciples of Dragon sect. We'll assassinate all the inborn experts of Donghua sacred sect," said Wang Xian coldly. "Since they're our enemy, there's no rest for them except death. Given Donghua sacred sect's strength and reputation, they would also wipe their enemies out completely. The underworld was such a place." Chapter 510, I'm Annihilating the Devils, 1. Dragon King, we will be passing by the Abyss on our way back. Should we head over with the Dragonians? On the way back, Wang Xian and the group called for a bus to send them back to Rivertown. When they were on the roads, Mo Yuan asked this. "Oh, the base of the Abyss?" Wang Xian was baffled. "The base of the Abyss is in the city ahead." "Yeah. Ling City, a relatively famous city in the underworld." Mo Yuan nodded his head as he answered Wang Xian. "A famous city?" Wang Xian was a little confused. "Yeah. Ling City is just beside the Fateless Forest. There are lots of martial artists in the entire Ling City. Moreover, many wanted martial artists seek refuge in Ling City. There's another more commonly known name of Ling City, and that's Ghost City. In it, there's a huge area where everyone has left and no one is residing." Mo Yuan explained to Wang Xian. "It's a chaotic place and the base of the Abyss is built right there. Moreover, they have established a rather good information department. These information agents are all outlaws recruited within Ling City." "Ling City? I have not heard of it. Since we are passing by, let's go and take a look." Wang Xian nodded his head and instructed Mo Yuan. "Yes." Mo Yuan nodded his head and went to direct the driver towards Ling City. After entering Ling City, Wang Xian realized that it was more of a larger county than a city. The roads of the entire city were a little cramped. There were also more houses and it was a little more chaotic as compared to Rivertown. "Dragon King, we are here." When the car arrived at the city center of Ling City, Mo Yuan turned around and informed Wang Xian. Located in the city center? Wang Xian alighted and observed the surroundings while he asked. This base wasn't built by Long Qi and the rest. They took over an assassination group and built it into the base of the abyss. Mo Yuan explained as he led Wang Xian towards a shop ahead. Lingyu Bar. Wang Xian lifted his head and saw the name of the shop. He smiled and entered it. It was roughly 5 p.m. and the bar hadn't opened for business. Mo Yuan took out his phone and informed Long Qi and the rest. Dragon King. Soon, 7 Dragonians opened the door and greeted Wang Xian respectfully. Dragon King, please follow us. Once they were in the bar, Wang Xian noticed some of the employees were already working. These employees were all ordinary people of both genders. They looked curiously at Wang Xian and the group. Dragon King, we usually enter through gate 2 and rarely enter through this gate, Long Qi said to Wang Xian in a solemn tone. Are there any other entrances? Wang Xian replied with a laugh. 5 of them. Long Qi answered and led them to an office. Soon after, Long Qi activated a switch and a tunnel leading underground appeared. This is just one of the entrances. There are 4 other entrances. As Long Qi spoke, he led them down the tunnel. After walking for approximately 1,000 meters, a huge underground space appeared before Wang Xian's eyes. This was the base of a first-class assassin group in the underworld in the past. It's extremely well hidden. Unless someone is part of the assassin group, it would be hard for them to enter. Long Qi explained to Wang Xian. This is a pretty huge place. It's almost half the size of the Dark Conjurer's base. Wang Xian looked around him in shock. Not many people were in the underground space. Other than the 7 Dragonians, the rest were all information agents. Information gathering was an important aspect of an assassin group. An assassin group without any information would basically be operating with both of their eyes closed. Even if they received a mission, it would take a huge amount of time to complete it. The entire Abyss base had 20-odd information agents processing information gathered from various places. For the near future, gather all information on Donghua Sacred Sect. Wang Xian looked around and instructed them. The information on Donghua Sacred Sect might be a little troublesome. They are too strong and it would be hard for us to get. Long Qi frowned slightly and continued, however, we can buy information. Buy information? Yeah. Omniscient Group is an organization that specializes in selling intelligence. As long as you can afford it, any information can be bought. However, they charge exorbitant fees. Long Qi nodded his head as he explained. Omniscient Group. Wang Xian knew about the Omniscient Group. In the past, they had published information on him. The Omniscient Group knew everything within heaven and earth. This was the strongest information organization in the underworld. When it came to the news on the underworld, there was nothing the Omniscient Group didn't know. One could tell how incredibly strong the Omniscient Group was. The Omniscient Group is also in this city. Long Qi suddenly interrupted. Huh. Their base is here too. Wang Xian was taken aback and shocked. We got to know this by accident. Shenling Information Technology Private Limited. That should be the nest of the Omniscient Group. Long Qi added. Is it? I'm 70% sure. There were a few times we overheard their informers exchanging information in our bar. They are really, really secretive. Long Qi continued, furthermore, other than the Omniscient Group, the base of remains from Diabolism is also located within the Fateless Forest a short distance away. They have many disciples who are active in this place. Over the last few days, the number of martial artists in Ling City has been dropping rapidly. Omniscient Group and the remains are here. How interesting. Could it be that the Omniscient Group and remains are not aware of our existence here? Wang Xian was a little curious. The Omniscient Group was the best in gathering information. They shouldn't be unaware of things that were happening so close to them. Dragon King, there's a good chance they don't know about it. Our abyss has only been established for a short period. Moreover, the missions we have accepted are less than 10 thus far. Naturally, as we accept more missions, the Omniscient Group will likely notice us with their incredible network, explained Long Qi. Wang Xian nodded his head. That was reasonable. Although the omniscient group was incredible, it was impossible for it to know everything in the underworld. Since the establishment of the Abyss, it was now ranked on the top of the assassin group chart in the underworld. However, they had only been established for just a few months. Moreover, the Abyss was only made up of 7 people and had accepted a small number of missions. Interesting. If we could gain control of the omniscient group, everything would be easier. Wang Xian hesitated. After walking around the base of the Abyss, he started pondering. When he walked out of the base of the Abyss, it was already past 6 p.m. Wang Xian had no intention to return today and thus headed in the direction Long Qi had told him about. Shenling Information Technology Private Limited was a high-tech company. With regard to this company, Wang Xian had heard of it. It was one of the top 500 companies in the world and was among the most elite tier in the aspect of computer information. Besides that, Shenling Information Technology Private Limited also had its own satellite. Chapter 511, I'm Annihilating the Demons, 2. A high-tech corporation, one which possesses advanced satellite technology. Wang Xian exclaimed outside the entrance of Shenling Information Technology, while he sensed the staff within the entire company. They were all ordinary folks, with not a single martial artist. And while Wang Xian gazed intently at the building, a middle-aged man watched on from the surveillance footage. He was standing in an office on the highest floor, within the very same building. Around the middle-aged man were numerous sets of exquisite human skins that were hung and draping from above. Other than this, there were multiple garnet bones, which shone in a crimson glow. The entire office looked extremely harrowing. From the surveillance footage, Wang Xian's silhouette appeared starkly clear. The Dragon King, eh? Has he already come to learn of our omniscient space? If I guessed correctly, that bar earlier should be the Abyss. Indeed. The Dragon Sect disciples are assassins within the Abyss. The middle-aged man broke into a tiny grin. With a face of immense confidence, his eyes glistened as he eyed the footage. A mere Dragon King is nothing to worry about. It's the entire alliance of the orthodox sects which we're up against. Did you guys really assume that we, Diabolism, have lived in seclusion for the past half a century without actually doing anything? Did you guys really assume that we'd be wiped out so easily by your so-called orthodox sects? Haha. This time, your so-called orthodox sects should prepare to look fear in the eye. The middle-aged man muttered under his breath, before continuing with a grimace. Then again, everything will depend on the fight between Emperor Qi and Nai Wushuang. It's best if they can perish together. The middle-aged looked on indifferently. He caressed his face as if to tidy up his appearance. After freshening himself up, he smiled once again. Striding like a successful man in society, he headed down with a briefcase in hand. All this while, his face beamed on with a warm and gentle smile. However, as the middle-aged man emerged from the room, Wang Xian looked away while he remained standing beneath the Shenling building. Indeed, this is the omniscient group. But, compared to what I imagined, this place differs by a huge margin, Wang Xian exclaimed as he turned around, while a sinister smile spread across his face. The middle-aged man assumed that he had scrutinized Wang Xian in detail, as he watched him through the surveillance footage. Little did he know that Wang Xian was looking at everything within the building using his piercing eyes, including the middle-aged man along with the surveillance footage. It did surprise Wang Xian that this omniscient group seemed to be from Diabolism, more specifically the remains. 5 decades of seclusion and waiting for an ambush. Indeed, things are more complicated than they seem. Wang Xian wandered into deep thought before dismissing it with a shake of his head. He went away, before stopping by a nearby restaurant for a simple meal. When it hit 8 at night, Wang Xian arrived at the Lingyu bar by the Abyss. The bar was packed with people. Little would anyone expect that an assassination group was housed just beneath this bar. Wang Xian swept a glance across the entire bar, only to spot more than a dozen martial artists before he found a spot and sat down. He paid no attention to the blaring music and took out his mobile phone to send multiple messages to Guan Shuqing and Lan Qingyu. But the duo did not reply to him, which rendered him very helpless. Huh! Wang Xian uttered in confusion. It was then when his nose twitched at the smell of a faint bloody stench. Wang Xian narrowed his eyes before looking to the side. At one of the corners were two extremely good-looking young men, accompanied by two beautiful ladies who sat by their side. With all smiles, the two beauties sat, leaning on the young men. Wang Xian looked at the eyes of the two beauties, as they appeared stoic and lifeless. Their hands were resting atop the wine glasses, while a fresh stream of blood was filling up the interiors. With satisfied looks on their faces, the two young men groped the beauties indiscriminately while they drank the fresh blood from the glasses. Akak. This is the life. It's been 50 years since I stepped into the deep ends of the forest to lead a primitive life when I was 10. Now, I finally get to enjoy life in this world of pleasures. Hee. Society these days is really one of the pleasure and enjoyment. When I'm able to refine the second set of bone puppets, I'm going to turn this little beauty into a bone puppet, and have my fun with it every day. As for Faceless, those few old haggard bitches. They seem to be living quite the life right now too. They're here, TSK. Look at that body, how mesmerizing. The conversation between the two young men could be heard loud and clear as it entered Wang Xian's ears. Wang Xian looked on with an icy stare. Through his piercing eyes, he could see two perverted elders in their 60s as they embraced the two beauties in their arms. "Hi there, handsome guy." Just then, an alluring voice called out to him. Wang Xian raised his head and saw a voluptuous woman looking at him with all smiles as she bent her body slightly. The woman even waved to the two young men seated in the corner. Wang Xian took a look at the woman and thought of those exquisite human skins housed within the Shunling building. So this is diabolism? Although many from the orthodox sects are annoying, these from diabolism are harrowing. Wang Xian thought to himself. This was not his first time seeing people from the remains. Previously, while on his way to the capital, Wang Xian didn't have much of a feeling during his encounters with them. But now that he had seen things for himself, he was overcome with an urge to kill. As Wang Xian raised his head to look at the shapely woman before him, what came into view instead was an old and haggard face that snarled in a grimace. "What do you want, old haggard bitch?" Wang Xian asked coldly, with a tinge of mockery, as he eyed the old hag. The enchanting woman was taken aback, as she reciprocated with an indifferent look. "Who are you calling an old haggard bitch, handsome? Do I look old?" the woman asked as she extended her hand and caressed Wang Xian's shoulders. "Is everyone from diabolism this unscrupulous and indiscriminate?" Wang Xian asked as he looked at the old hag before him before he swept a glance over at the two young men who remained in the corner. The woman froze upon hearing Wang Xian's words, as the smile on her face faded away before it was replaced by a surging force of ominous aura. "You know too much," the woman snapped with a growl, losing all sense of enchantment from earlier on. "Die." Wang Xian shot back in an unsympathetic tone. With a swing of his arm, a threatening force struck directly at the woman. With such a force, even killing an inborn expert would be a piece of cake. Ah! When Wang Xian's arm landed on the woman, her face contorted as she shot him a look of trepidation. Boom! A bout of fresh blood was spat out from her mouth while her old, haggard, and hideous body flew backward before crashing onto the area behind. "You're asking for doom." A snappy voice lingered across the bar, as it concealed the music being played. "Huh! The golden cicada sheds its shell? To think it's managed to hold off the fatal blow." Wang Xian exclaimed in mild surprise. He arched his brows before standing up gradually. "A martial artist? How dare you, asking for doom?" At the corner, the two young men stood up immediately. Their facial expressions darkened at the sight of the faceless old hag when they saw that she had resorted to the golden cicada sheds its shell stance in order to stay alive. Get out, all of you." Just then, Mo Yuan and a few other Dragonians hollered at the rest of the ordinary folks who were present in the bar, at the sight of what happened. They had been keeping watch within the premises. Ah, the crowd responded. The holler, overwhelmed with a devilish aura, had raised fear in them. Even the tourists who had wanted to stay and watch the spectacle unfold began to race towards the exit in fright. Chapter 512, I'm Annihilating the Devils, 3. All of a sudden, all the tourists in the bar ran out in a hurry, including those few martial artists. These martial artists were at most level 5 or 6. Some were even weaker. Mo Yuan's scream made them sense horrifying risks. Long Qi waved his arm and the employees instantly lost their consciousness and fell to the ground. I had not expected to meet such a powerful inborn expert in this place. The old hag who managed to stay alive by shedding her skin revealed her ugly true self. She wiped away the blood on her mouth and stared intensely at Wang Xian with killing intent. The other 2 young men also walked over and stared coldly at Wang Xian. "Who are you? Why are you offending our remains? I finally understand why there are so many sects in the underworld who wish to annihilate all of you. There are many scheming people within the orthodox sects, but you guys truly deserve death." Wang Xian glanced harshly across the 3 of them. Today, Wang Xian finally witnessed the true side of diabolism. They were truly unscrupulous in killing the innocent by brutal means. The bloody cultivation arts had distorted their souls. People like them shouldn't exist in this world. You will die quickly if you stick your nose into things you shouldn't. The old hag let out a wretched cry and a bell appeared in her hands suddenly. Ding ding. A sound came from the bell. As for the other 2 young men, they held identical bells in their hands too. The magical sound made it out of the bar. Swish swish swish. At this moment, 3 figures appeared in the bar. 2 girls and a guy. The 2 girls were incomparably beautiful while the guy was exceptionally stunning. Their eyes were empty and they had a faint stench of blood lingering around them. There was a black patch in their palms that glowed in a creepy dull light. Their fingers were long and extremely sharp. "Brat, I'm going to skin you and dismantle your bones." The old hag's expression was contorted and she stared hideously at him. "You truly deserve death for spoiling our mood." The other 2 young men shook their bells gently and the 2 beautiful girls moved before them in rigid movements. "He's an inborn expert. I can't give all of his bones to you." The young man looked at the old hag and said plainly. "He damaged one of my skins. I'm getting his skin and you can have his bones." "Kill him," the old hag shrieked and shook the bell in her hands. Ding ding. Ding ding. The young man also shook his bell. 3 stiff figures instantly attacked Wang Xian. Their razor-sharp claws gave off terrifying auras. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Seeing their faces, they were all in their 20s. Yet, they had been killed by these devils. Wang Xian waved his arm and intense flames shrouded on the bone puppets. Ah! Wretched screams came from them. The bone puppets had a little spirituality after they were refined. What? The 2 young men and the old hag were shocked to see the bone puppets they had refined turning to ashes rapidly. "Who are you? How can you be so powerful?" Fear gleamed in the eyes of the 3 of them. 3 inborn-level bone puppets were reduced to ashes directly. How can this be possible? Run. The 3 of them ran out without any hesitation. Wang Xian was emotionless as he waved his arm. 3 balls of flames flew towards the trio and surrounded them completely. What? How can this be possible? Bring me to the base of the remains. Wang Xian stared at them and demanded coldly. He wasn't paying attention to their screams. You. Who are you? The 3 of them looked fearfully at the flames around them and couldn't help but shiver. Me? Don't you know me? It doesn't matter. Hee hee. If you don't wish to die, bring me to the base of the remains, remarked Wang Xian plainly with a faint smile. You want to go into the base of our remains? A young man stared at Wang Xian and asked bitterly. That's right. Wang Xian chuckled. Bring me there and you guys might still have a chance to survive. Otherwise, I'll reduce all of you to ashes immediately. All right. Since you are courting death, I'll bring you there, the old hag growled at Wang Xian with a hideous expression. Take the lead. Wang Xian instructed them emotionlessly. Behind him, Mo Yuan immediately called to all the Dragonians. SSS. Those 3 are from the remains. They are from the remains. Those that charged in previously are the bone puppets they made, and those who can make such bone puppets are, without a doubt, inborn expert. They are now controlled by that overly young man. He's the Dragon King. I've seen him once before. That young man is the Dragon King from the Dragon Sect. Wang Xian used flames to control them as they walked out of the bar. When the martial artists that had chosen to stay witnessed this, their eyes widened and were filled with horror. Over the last few days, the disciples of the remains had been appearing in Ling City. Some martial artists had left in fear, but some had stayed because they were wanted by other governments or forces. Now that they saw the 3 inborn experts from the remains under the control of the Dragon King, they were astonished. "What is the Dragon King going to do?" a martial artist asked curiously. The 2 martial artists around him were mumbling to themselves in shock. "I don't know. Dragon's sect has not joined the alliance of the orthodox sects and isn't willing to annihilate diabolism. Currently, they are labeled as an evil sect by Donghua Sacred Sect. All the sects in the underworld have expressed their willingness to join the alliance of the orthodox sects in preparation for the annihilation of diabolism. Only the Dragon sect hasn't joined. All the martial artists are looking down on the Dragon sect with contempt." The 3 of them conversed. One of them took out the phone and entered the underworld website. "All the experts of the underworld have joined the alliance of the orthodox sects to eradicate diabolism. The Dragon King of the Dragon sect is exceptionally arrogant and isn't willing to join the alliance of the orthodox sects." Shocking. The Dragon King of the Dragon sect defeated the Lord of Sea Serpent Island and became the 2nd strongest expert in today's underworld. The Dragon King from Dragon sect is simply too arrogant. He severely injured the Lord of Sea Serpent Island and declared he won't rest until either the Dragon sect or Donghua Sacred Sect has perished. He's not willing to join the alliance of the orthodox sects and acted just like a devil sect. Not only is the Dragon sect unwilling to join the alliance of the orthodox sects, but they also are making Donghua Sacred Sect their enemy. A trash sect like this is no different from diabolism. I'm suggesting eradicating the Dragon sect after eliminating diabolism. He's simply too arrogant. Annihilating diabolism was the trend of the entire underworld and what all martial artists hoped to see. Now that Dragon sect had become the only sacred sect who was unwilling to join the alliance of the orthodox sects, all the martial artists in the underworld weren't happy with them. Besides that, he announced he wouldn't rest until either the Dragon sect or Donghua Sacred Sect had perished at this critical juncture. Not only was he unwilling to help, but he also hindered the progress. This infuriated all the other martial artists. Although the sacred sects were wary of the strength of the Dragon sect and didn't make a statement, their disciples could post critiques of them on the underworld website without reserve. All of a sudden, the Dragon sect was seen as the equivalent of diabolism. TSK. When Wang Xian walked out of the bar and heard the comments around him, his face turned as cold as ice. "I have no need to explain my actions to you guys. If I'm not happy with diabolism, I'll cut them down. If the orthodox sects offend me, I'll also kill. Public opinions from the underworld aren't going to change my mind." Chapter 513, Annihilating the Remains. That place heads in the direction of the Fateless Forest. What's the Dragon King intending to do, heading over with a group of Dragon sect disciples? The base of the remains is located within the Fateless Forest. Don't tell me he's intending to form an alliance with the remains. That's a tricky question. As of now, the Dragon sect are enemies with the Donghua Sacred Sect. Who knows, the Dragon sect might really just form an alliance with diabolism. Are you for real? As Ling City was really small, news of what happened in Lingyu Bar soon spread across the entire city. Many appeared shocked and suspicious at the sight of the Dragon King, as he followed 3 members from the remains and headed for the Fateless Forest. Should the Dragon sect really form an alliance with diabolism, it'll spell a huge disaster. Several martial artists shrieked with burdened expressions. They frowned at the sight of the group, whose silhouettes had disappeared into the darkness of the night. Currently, the prowess of the Dragon sect had been acknowledged by the underworld as second amongst all forces. The prowess of the Dragon King was known to be second amongst all individuals within the underworld. Should such an expert, from such powerful sacred sect, form an alliance with diabolism, they would no doubt stand as a formidable opponent to the alliance of the orthodox sect. "I must disseminate this message," a martial artist thought to himself with his mobile phone in hand. As he looked at the photographs taken on his phone, he proceeded immediately to post it for the underworld to see. The Dragon King of the Dragon sect is in a suspected alliance with the remains. 3 experts from the remains have led the Dragon King into the fateless forest. We, the alliance of the orthodox sects, will have to exercise caution. Upon the dissemination of the news, the entire underworld was sent into a frenzy. Today, the alliance of the orthodox sects had been officially formed, which the Dragon sect had not joined. This had already caused the utter displeasure of many martial artists within the underworld. It only infuriated more, given that the Dragon King was also at extreme odds with the Donghua sacred sect. The Dragon sect was thus slapped with terms like hindrance and evil sect. Yet, the entire underworld was sent into an uproar following the release of this news. An alliance between the Dragon sect and the remains? So the Dragon sect has come together with diabolism? To think that the Dragon sect's really combining forces with diabolism, what in the world, this damned Dragon sect, and its darned Dragon King. To think they're really forming an alliance with diabolism. Damn it, the power of the Dragon sect is amongst the top within the underworld. Should they form an alliance with diabolism, it'll spell a huge damn disaster. It's probably due to the enmity forged between Dragon sect and Donghua sacred sect today, hence the former's admission into diabolism in order to stand against the Donghua sacred sect. The Dragon sect annihilated the medical saint sect and Qiao clan. Such a sacred sect is no different from diabolism, hence they should be wiped out the soonest possible. After the post was uploaded, it sent the entire underworld chiding and cursing away at the Dragon sect. Many martial artists were infuriated, as they boasted blatantly of wiping out the Dragon sect being the priority. Meanwhile, more than a dozen had gathered in a grand hall within the sacred grounds of the Donghua sacred sect, which was located amidst the central regions of the country. Those who had gathered looked on with deep frowns and awful expressions. Seated in the middle of those gathered was an elder, as he glistened with a metallic sheen. It was especially so with his arms, which shone like titanium. His hair was somewhat long, as it hung loosely scattered behind his head, while he exuded a unique aura that boasted no less dominance. The Dragon sect and Dragon King. With regards to this, you guys have not handled this properly, the elder snapped with a low growl which resembled the impact made as one struck with a heavy weapon. Yes, indeed, sect leader, this Dragon King's too obnoxious. He wants to slay the Lord of Sea Serpent Island while remaining at loggerheads with Donghua sacred sect. We can't do anything about it, Nai Wuya replied in awe and fear while standing by the side. Since we're already nemesis with each other, then let's just battle it out until either side perishes, the elder conceded with a flat tone as he raised his head. He too was aware that the other party would never let things slide since they had become enemies. Not unless they, Donghua sacred sect, decided to bow down and admit their faults. But to make the Donghua sect bow their heads down was clearly not an easy feat, hence, the only way out was to battle it out until one party perished. Now that the Dragon sect is going to form an alliance with diabolism, the entire alliance of the orthodox sects shall wait before removing those evils altogether when the day arrive. Nai Wuya proclaimed indifferently at a side. The elder nodded in agreement before standing up and flying off towards the deeper ends of the mountains. Nai Wuya watched as his sect leader took his leave before heaving a sigh of relief. His face was plastered with a grimace almost immediately thereafter. Darn this Dragon sect and its Dragon King, he cursed. 5 minutes later, across the online forum of the underworld, the Donghua sacred sect made an announcement. The Dragon sect and its Dragon King have pledged allegiance to diabolism and become demons. The alliance of the orthodox sects shall annihilate them in the times to come. With the announcement of the Donghua sacred sect, it meant that the Dragon sect had since been recognized as a part of diabolism. Support Donghua sacred sect. Annihilate diabolism and Dragon sect. Annihilate the Dragon sect, for they're traitors of the underworld. And hopefully, slay the Dragon King the soonest possible. Countless martial artists commented below the announcement thread. Experts of various sacred sects looked on with burdened expressions at the sight of the situation. With the addition of the Dragon sect onto the current task of eliminating diabolism, it seemed likely that many were going to die. The chat forum for the underworld continued to buzz as everyone was busy discussing away about the admission of the Dragon King and his Dragon sect into diabolism. In the meantime, Wang Xian had already arrived at a ghastly burial ground along with 3 experts from the remains. 50 kilometers in front of the fateless forest, all trees had turned black. With their withering trunks, there was not a single leaf growing on their dry and bare branches. Caw, caw. A crow called out while resting atop a branch. With its jet-black body, it looked on with eyes that glistened in red. At the sight of the quartet, the crow turned its crimson eyes upon them. On the ground just up ahead, numerous broken bones were strewn all over, which consisted of both human and animal carcasses. The entire area up front appeared eerie and harrowing. So, up ahead lies the hideout of Yu remains? Wang Xian asked as he squinted briefly, surveying the area ahead. Yes, that's right, it's just up ahead. The trio from the remains nodded instantaneously as they gazed at the remains base with a tinge of vigor in their eyes. If that's the case, then you all can perish now, Wang Xian said indifferently as he looked at them. What? The trio uttered in bewilderment. Soon after, they noticed that the flames which had been surrounding them had begun to ascend. The horrendous blazing flames raged on, lighting up everything which stood in their way. Ah, no. Didn't you say? The trio from the remains uttered. In handling diabolism, it's only natural that I adopt the diabolical way. Wang Xian sniggered without the least concern. With a swing of his arm, the blazing flames dived into the trio's mouths and muted all their screams. Bam, bam, bam. The trio struggled with all their might, while Wang Xian retrieved an item from his pocket. It was a skull, a black skull. Although it was only the size of a fist, the skull brimmed in vitality. Nether Skull, level 12. The Nether Skull was a spiritual weapon which Wang Xian had obtained from Deity Lady of the Nether Flame denomination. Back then, this Nether Skull had released such formidable powers that even the fire demon had feared the trio. This made the Nether Skull worthy as a demonic weapon, as they increased their powers by absorbing will-o-wisp. What were will-o-wisps then? These were flames emitted from human bones after one died. Hence, one can imagine the number of lives it had cost to refine this Nether Skull. Even more so, as it ascended in levels, it would exhaust even larger amounts of will-o-wisp. And while will-o-wisps were not categorized under the heavenly flame, they appeared more terrifying otherwise. To subdue the demons using the demons. Wang Xian smiled before thrusting the Nether Skull into the air above the 3 remains disciples. Chapter 514, Nether Skull. Ka. Creepy noises came from the corpses of the 3 members of the remains. The red flames on them had disappeared and were replaced by black will-o-wisps. The will-o-wisps burned creepily on their bodies, and in just a dozen or so seconds, their bodies had vanished completely. Wang Xian revealed a faint smile and the Nether Skull returned to the size of a human head. He moved his arm and the Nether Skull hovered above his shoulder. From the location of the eyes, black will-o-wisps glowed intensely. The next moment, it turned to face the crows on the branches. Cadaveric Crow, Level 7. Level 7 Cadaveric Crows. There are at least a few thousands cadaveric crows around them. The remains are really strong. It's no surprise considering that they've been lying low for 50 years. Wang Xian looked across the thousands and thousands of cadaveric crows in shock before continuing to walk ahead. Gaga. Just as he was about to take another step forward, those cadaveric crows stared at him with their blood-red eyes. Using their razor-sharp beaks as weapons, they charged towards Wang Xian. BZZ. The Nether Skull on Wang Xian's shoulder appeared to be exceptionally excited. Will-o-wisps came from the bones of corpses. Cadaveric crows had far more will-o-wisps in them than ordinary people. Ka. With just a thought, the Nether Skull on his shoulder flew towards the flock of cadaveric crows. Its mouth enlarged and devoured 5 cadaveric crows in a go. Drips of impurities flowed down from the chin of the Nether Skull. No matter how many cadaveric crows there are, they are simply nutrients for the Nether Skull. Wang Xian smiled faintly. Behind him, Mo Yuan and 27 Dragonians had also walked over. Ga. The deeper they went, the more cadaveric crows flew towards them. Their calls were sharp and shrouded towards Wang Xian and the group in a huge flock. Wang Xian waved his arm and a stream of fire dragon energy was injected into the Nether Skull. Wang. Ka. The head of the nether skull expanded explosively to over a meter in size. Will-o-wisps flickered in the giant eye sockets and the terrifying mouth crunched on the huge flock of cadaveric crows. Each cadaveric crow that entered the mouth of the nether skull was transformed into dense will-o-wisps. The cadaveric crows had become the nutrients for the nether skull instead. The more will-o-wisps are in the nether skull, the larger it can expand. That deity lady from Netherflame killed several people before the battle to absorb their bones and create more will-o-wisp. Seeing the incomparably huge skull, Wang Xian showed a faint smile. As it was a level 12 spiritual weapon, he wouldn't have to control it while it was devouring the cadaveric crows. Instinctively, it could attack on its own. Ga ga ga. After walking approximately 1,000 meters forward, a flock of at least 1,000 cadaveric crows appeared before them. In the middle, there was a cadaveric crow that spanned 2 meters long. It opened up its wings and its black bones were exposed at the back. It was emitting a deathly aura and there was even a piece of flesh still dangling below its beak. It would seem like we are nearing the base of the remains. Wang Xian looked ahead and saw a creepy and terrifying small village ahead of him. There was a small stream before the village and several stone huts. In the middle, there was a huge structure that resembled a platform for sacrificial rituals. At night, every stone hut and structure had 2 basins of flames at the door. Will-o-wisps burned creepily within the fire basins. In front of some stone huts, there were several human figures. They looked stiff and had no emotions on their faces. Intruders. Who dares to step into the remains territory? Hee. It doesn't matter. If he can make it here, he must be pretty strong and he will make a powerful bone puppet. A sharp voice resounded and figure after figure rushed to the spot from all directions. Rattle, rattle, rattle. At this moment, the sound of wings flapping could be heard from the sky. Wang Xian lifted his head and looked into the sky. On a huge tree, a terrifying cadaveric crow with a human head was flying towards him. The human head had the looks of an exceptionally good-looking young man. However, his eyes were blood-red and he had the body of a cadaveric crow. On the cadaveric crow, there was a young girl that looked like she was just 17 to 18 years old. She wore bright and revealing red clothes that exposed most parts of her body. A blue and red light flashed in Wang Xian's eyes. He realized that the girl was, in fact, a hunchback old man. He was staring harshly at Wang Xian and looked extremely creepy. Looking across the dozen-odd figures, Wang Xian found that they were all handsome or beautiful guys and girls. There were at least 1 or even 2 bone puppets standing beside them. A pungent stench of blood was emitted from their bodies. There were 5 humans and together with their bone puppets, there were 13. Seeing Wang Xian and the group, they raised their eyebrows in confusion and stood in a line. In the air, the hunchback old man stood on the cadaveric crow with a human head and was looking down at Wang Xian and the group. Who are you? How dare you kill the cadaveric crows of our remains and barge into the lands of our remains? When the hunchback old man on the cadaveric crow saw the huge skull above Wang Xian, he questioned him solemnly. Dragon King of the Dragon Sect. Wang Xian looked across them and killing intent flashed across his eyes. Dragon King from Dragon Sect. The crowd was taken aback and turned solemn. As the guards of the base of the remains, they had gathered news on the happenings in the underworld while they were on duty. The Dragon King of the Dragon Sect was now the 2nd strongest unparalleled expert in the underworld. What? Are you here to collaborate with us? Where are the 3 disciples of our remains? The hunchback old man standing on the cadaveric crow had just glanced through the thread on the underworld website. He squinted his eyes and focused on the nether skull above Wang Xian's head while asking him. Collaboration? Wang Xian was taken aback but soon revealed a smirk. The disciples from the remains. Let me send you guys to meet them. Wang Xian waved his arm and a stream of will-o-wisps shot out from the nether skull instantly towards the hunchback old man on the cadaveric crow. They are enemies. We are under attack, the hunchback old man shouted loudly upon seeing Wang Xian attacking suddenly. Kill. Today, I'm here to annihilate the remains. Wang Xian ordered. Mo Yuan and the Dragonians behind Wang Xian instantly sprang into action. When the hunchback old man saw the will-o-wisps crashing into him, He could feel the strength of it as his expression changed substantially. He moved his arms and the cadaveric crow with a human head below him shielded him immediately. Gaga! The cadaveric crow cried out loud and fell onto the ground directly. What? The hunchback old man was furious and drew an ivory dagger instantly. Retreat! We are under attack from the dragon sect. We are under attack from the Dragon King. Inform Lord Ossian. The hunchback old man shouted in his sharp voice which instantly reached the entire base of the remains. Run! When the other 5 experts from remains saw the strength Mo Yuan and the group released instantly, they were horrified and retreated immediately. Will you be able to escape? Today, I, Wang Xian, shall enforce justice on behalf of heaven. Wang Xian waved his arm and dense fire dragon energy was injected into the nether skull. The nether skull exploded in size and reached over 2 meters. At the same time, it started devouring the members of the remains at an astonishing speed. Chapter 515, Lord Ossian. Caw, caw, caw. Up in the sky, thousands of cadaveric crows descended on the area below in one clean sweep when they saw Wang Xian and the Dragonians lunging at the remains disciples. Their screeching caws pierced through the skies while they emitted bloodthirst as they swarmed like thousands of fowls out to kill. Wang Xian swung his arm, and a gigantic skull appeared as it stared down at the crows. Ack, ack. As if cackling in a grimace, the nether skull gave off a chuckle and shook lightly. Boom. Following the blast, a terrifying surge of nether flames soared past, concealing the area within more than 1,000-meter radius. Settling like dust, the surrounding trees fell to the ground. The cadaveric crows in the air, which measured 2 meters in length, had been bursting out in laughter earlier on. Yet, they looked on and stared at the nether skull in trepidation. Kill, the nether skull commanded as if speaking in a human tone, opening its mouth before gnawing straight at the giant cadaveric crows. Caw, caw, caw. The broken voice of the nether skull continued to ring through the air as the giant cadaveric crow stood defenseless with no chance to retaliate. With every cadaveric crow it devoured, the nether flame on the nether skull glowed a little brighter. Running away, but can you? Wang Xian asked as he extended his arm, at the sight of the hunchback elder trying to escape. An inferno wall appeared instantly in front of the elder, causing him to lose color in the face. Be gone, die. Mo Yuan snarled from the back as his threatening dragon claws lashed at the head of the hunchbacked elder. Trying to kill me, her? I'll slaughter you first. The hunchback elder grimaced before turning his body around. With his bone dagger in hand, he aimed the scarlet weapon straight at Mo Yuan's chest while paying no heed to Mo Yuan's dragon claws. Mo Yuan remained unfazed while numerous streaks of black dragon scales began to form on his chest area. Be gone, die. Off you go to hell. The duo hollered at the same time. Thereafter, the maiden's skin plastered on the hunchback elder began to split, revealing the hideous figure beneath. How dare you ruin my skin? Off to hell you go, the hunchback elder snapped with a grimace. With a grisly snarl, the hunchback elder took aim with the bone dagger in his hand and stabbed forcefully into Mo Yuan's chest. TSK. The bone dagger plunged into Mo Yuan's body, to which he reacted with a small facial twitch. Yet, disbelief soon settled across the face of the hunchbacked elder. Creak, creak. With a slight maneuver of his arm, Mo Yuan grabbed onto the arms of the elder, before tearing away at the latter's head using his dragon claws. Ah! How's this possible? How can your body be tougher than bone puppets? The hunchback elder roared at Mo Yuan while looking on in disbelief. Following which, a gigantic dragon claw clasped tightly onto his head. This blew the head of the elder right off, like an exploded watermelon. There's been an intruder. There's been an intruder. Ring, 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 ring. At that instant, shrieking cries could be heard from the remains village located just up ahead. This was immediately followed by a series of piercing rings of bells. Caw, caw, caw. Every ring of the bells resonated like a soul-stabilizing voice. Even the surrounding trees began to follow its lead, creaking gently as they swayed along. Up above in the skies, the cawing of the cadaveric crows could be heard. Under the pristine moonlight, countless cadaveric crows could be seen flying over. The lights shone brightly from the small village up ahead. One by one, Numerous members from the remains began to make their way out. With bells in their hands, they looked coldly in the direction of Wang Xian. "There are so many of them," Wang Xian exclaimed as he looked ahead with narrowed eyes. The entire village contained close to 10,000 villagers. This included the young and elderly, and each and every one looked on with a grim and ghastly expression. Many of the little children were each hugging onto a skull. Some were human skulls while others belonged to beasts. "They're trespassers from the dragon sect. Kill them," an inborn expert of the remains shouted after being struck heavily by the Dragonians. In reaction to the harsh attack, he resorted to the stance of golden cicada sheds its shell in order to make his escape, leaving behind a sheet of human skin. At the sight of this gory remains base, Wang Xian's body began to light up in flames. Those from the remains shouldn't be left to exist. With a change of stance, Wang Xian soared and ascended into the skies as he ejected a dragon ball from his mouth. Roar! With his dragon roar, the Inferno Divine Dragon was summoned from the Dragon Ball and was at Wang Xian's disposal before it dived into the skies and lashed the cadaveric crows. The level 11 Dragon Ball was already capable of unleashing powers equivalent to those of a Dan Realm expert. With one sweep of the dragon tail, the Inferno Divine Dragon wiped out hundreds of cadaveric crows using its flames and terrifying prowess. "Ring, ring, ring! Kill that fellow in the sky!" A screeching voice could be heard. It came from a chubby old lady who shouted while holding a human bone staff in her hand. At the same time, with a ring of bells on her other hand, she summoned 4 other members from the remains who proceeded to charge at Wang Xian. Amongst the quartet were 2 beasts, one of which was a giant bear and the other a goshawk, while the remaining 2 were elders. Together, these 4 inborn experts from the remains emerged with an overwhelming bloodthirst and savageness. Wang Xian looked across and saw close to 10,000 disciples of the remains standing in front of the village. A little more than 50 from the remains dashed ahead for Wang Xian and gang. They included more than a dozen who were charging straight for Wang Xian. Their bodies were 7 to 8 times stronger than their counterparts of equivalent grades. Their highly resistant bodies alone were enough to instill fear in an inborn expert, even if they should possess no other unique combat techniques. Similar to zombies, they feared neither pain nor death. No doubt the 4 main devil sects. Within the remains alone are more than 30 inborn experts. Along with the bone puppets that they produce, that'll peak at close to 80. Wang Xian extended his arms at the sight of the remains members who were charging in his direction. Crack, crack, crack. Suddenly, the fire surrounding Wang Xian began to burst into wider flames, as little specks of fire appeared in void air. Dan Realm experts, hollered a chubby elderly lady who stood amidst the remains disciples. 1 Dan Realm expert, and 27 inborn expert. She continued in grimace. "The dragon sect, huh? Good. Today, you all shall remain here," said the chubby granny. Thereafter, she threw the human bone staff in her hand over to the middle of the village, aiming straight into the building which resembled a ritual hall. "May I call upon Lord Ossian to slay these tough opponents? The battle between good and evil has yet to begin. To think, someone has already barged into the grounds of ours." "The grounds of the remains," a calm and leveled voice questioned. Lord Ossian, all disciples of the remains greeted immediately, as they knelt in the direction of the ritual hall. "Lord Ossian?" Wang Xian asked with a raised brow. Following the greeting, the surrounding mid-air flames grew stronger before the specks coagulated into a collective flaming rope. With much ease, the flaming rope tied the respective inborn experts from the remains together. Bam! With a swing of his arm, Wang Xian dumped the remains over to the center of the village. "Dragon King of the Dragon Sect. I know you." A bone tentacle shot out from within the ritual hall before it swung at the various remains. "A freak who's neither human nor spirit." Wang Xian gasped with a squinted look as he stared ahead. With an indifferent expression, he could see a tentacle which stretched more than a dozen meters in length, and a skeleton which reached up to 10 meters. It resembled a snake's body and had a head attached to its rear. It was the head of an elder. Gradually, another snake-like tentacle extended itself slowly into the open. As with the previous, this skeletal tentacle also had a head at its tail. Yet, this was not the end, as more and more skeletal tentacles began to emerge. Finally, a youth appeared. He had exceptional visuals, although he was without legs. On his lower body, 10 snake-like tentacles supported his weight, where each of the 10 measured more than a dozen meters long. Chapter 516, Annihilating Lord Ossian. Ga ga ga. Ling ling ling. When the terrifying Lord Ossian appeared, the cadaveric crows in the sky avoided the attacks of the Inferno Divine Dragon and the Nether Skull as they gathered above Lord Ossian rapidly. The bone puppets were summoned towards him and stood before the disciples of the remains. They were all staring at Wang Xian with bloodlust. Dragon King of Dragon Sect, I don't remember our remains having any feud with your dragon sect. You should be going after Donghua Sacred Sect instead of coming to the base of our remains. The young man looked at Wang Xian with a warming smile. His 10 other tentacles that were over 10 meters long supported him. There are many people who have no feud with the remains and yet you killed them all. I don't need to have a feud with you to kill you. The Inferno Divine Dragon came back to Wang Xian and circled around him. The Nether Skull shrank back to the size of a human head and hovered on Wang Xian's shoulder. How dare you barge in the land of our remains? You are indeed as described in the information we have gathered. Arrogant and conceited. The smile on the young man disappeared. He lifted his head slightly and continued, in that case, you guys can forget about leaving. The body of a Dan Realm expert could very well be used to forge my 11th tailbone. He laughed out loud and waved his 10 other tailbones. On them, the human heads were wretched. 10 pairs of eyes stared at Wang Xian. They were cold and gave Wang Xian goosebumps. I'll kill the Dragon King. As for the rest, I'm leaving them to you guys. The young man turned to Wang Xian and revealed a faint smile. Hee hee. While he was smiling, 10 creepy voices came from the 10 human heads on his 10 tailbones. Your path to the remains is a one-way trip. Once you are here, you won't be leaving. The young man opened up his arms and shut his eyes slightly. A blood-red bell appeared in his hands. Oh, remains that have been in a slumber. It's time for you to rise. Ling ling. Ling ling. 2 clear rings sounded from the blood-red bell. Ka 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 ka. All of a sudden, a bone claw emerged from the ground. Following which, black skeletons crawled out from the ground. There were countless skeletons. It was as though the entire ground had awakened as thousands and thousands of skeletons crawled out. Gaga. Cadaveric crows cried as they circled in the air. Their bodies had shielded the moonlight from the bright moon, causing the entire region to resemble a terrifying death region. This was once a major graveyard where over 300,000 elite soldiers died. Now that it's awakening, the future underworld will also be the remains underworld, the young man mumbled to himself. Suddenly, he shouted coldly, kill, kill. The expressions on the faces of the group of disciples from the remains were contorted as the bell rang. They immediately charged towards Wang Xian and the group. Inborn-level disciples of the remains had ivory daggers and bone swords in their hands as they charged and attacked the 27 Dragonians. 80 to 90 inborn experts killing 20-odd inborn experts should be an effortless task. Around them, dense skeletons also charged towards the Dragonians. These skeletons were as hard as rocks and had a strength that was not weaker than a level 6 or 7 martial artist. Controlling skeletons is a little like necromancers in the Western world. The devil dragon cultivation arts can also control skeletons, and the skeletal dragon is even better at it. If Elder Fang and Xiao Yu were here, there wouldn't be sufficient skeletons for them to crush. Thousands and thousands of skeletons rose from the ground below Wang Xian. Just killing these skeletons had fully occupied the Dragonians, let alone going against a huge group of inborn experts. The strength of the remains had completely exceeded their expectations. Devour them. Wang Xian moved his arm and black willow wisps were emitted from the nether skull. They grew to 2 meters and attacked the skeletons below him and the cadaveric crows. Your opponent is me. It's been a long time since I became serious. Let's see how far you can push me. The young man looked at Wang Xian as he flew into the sky directly. The 10 terrifying tailbones were swaying and the heads on them were staring creepily at him. The second strongest expert from the underworld? Hee hee. Take my first tailbone attack. The young man laughed as a tailbone swept towards Wang Xian with tremendous force. What an arrogant person. Ruthlessness flashed in the eyes of Wang Xian. Today, I'll show you my true strength too. Growling, grr. This time, Wang Xian didn't attempt to hide. Before the astonished eyes of Lord Ossian, Wang Xian turned into a five-colored divine dragon. Wang Xian lifted his head and gave a loud roar that reverberated throughout the skies. This is. When Lord Ossian saw Wang Xian's form, his eyes couldn't help but constrict. Divine dragon. Divine dragon. This. Could it be there are really divine dragons? Lord Ossian looked to Wang Xian, who was in the sky. A flash of surprise gleamed in his eyes, but such emotions were quickly taken over by frenzy. Regardless of whether you are a real divine dragon or other creatures, if your body can be used to forge the 11th tailbone, it will definitely be beautiful. I'm taking your body. Hee. Lord Ossian smiled and swung a tailbone towards Wang Xian. The terrifying tailbones resembled bone chains made from metal. They were incomparably terrifying and had spikes all over them. The wind was split as the tailbone swept towards Wang Xian's head. I'll show you my strength too. Ruthlessness gleamed in the eyes of Wang Xian as he swung his dragon tail across. The dragon tail glowed in a golden light and the dragon scales stood up. The face on the approaching tailbone looked wretched. He opened his mouth, revealed his razor-sharp teeth, and droplets of water oozed out from his mouth. Rumble. The dragon tail and the tailbone clashed heavily together, creating a deafening boom. Ah! A pitiful cry came from the head on the tailbone. The moment the head clashed with the dragon tail, it exploded into pieces. Cracks filled the entire tailbone and it was almost as good as useless moving ahead. What? When Lord Ossian saw the cracks on the tailbone, he was shocked and infuriated. How dare you crush one of my tailbones? You deserve death. As he spoke, his entire body moved and the 9 other tailbones started sweeping towards Wang Xian like the tentacles of an octopus. Every tailbone carried with it immense energy. As they clashed, sounds of explosions erupted and white fog was formed over the sky. Hee. Seeing Lord Ossian attacking towards him, Wang Xian revealed a cold smirk. The strength of Lord Ossian was indeed terrifying. Every tailbone could have the strength of a Dan realm expert. Moreover, Lord Ossian relied solely on the strength of the physical body, or simply, brute strength. Nonetheless, one shouldn't belittle brute strength. When strength reached a certain level, it would still be a terrifying thing. He actually forced our Lord Ossian to release all his strength. This brat can die now. Below them, the disciples of the remains looked in admiration towards Lord Ossian after seeing their Lord Ossian waving his terrifying tailbones. Chapter 517, Remains Annihilated. Every tailbone of Lord Ossian has destructive power that can bring down the world. Each of them was made from the secret art of the remains, after consuming a large number of worldly treasures. According to the elders, Lord Ossian alone could fight against 5 Dan realm expert. Lord Ossian is considered the invincible existence among Dan realm experts. That person used an unknown method to turn into a divine dragon, but is a far cry from our Lord Ossian. In the myths, divine dragons can rise to the sky, travel in the clouds, tumble the water. Every one of them is a few hundred meters in size. From what I see, this divine dragon is practicing bloodline cultivation, which is similar to those in Europe. The group of remains disciples watched with smiles on their faces. 27 Dragonians were already fully suppressed by 80 inborn experts from the remains, and they could passively defend themselves. If it were not for the nether skull, there might have been casualties. It would not be long before they were killed. The dragon sect is simply providing materials. 27 inborn experts will make powerful bone puppet. After Lord Ossian makes his tail bone from this divine dragon, his strength will be enhanced greatly again. Then, Emperor Qi might not be his match. With so many materials before our war, our strength will be greatly enhanced. A group of remains disciples revealed malevolent smiles as they watched the battle. Both the elderly and young were exhibiting bloodthirsty looks on their faces. Heh! Seeing the tailbone sweeping at him, Wang Xian displayed a contemptuous look. When the tailbone was 100 meters away from him, Wang Xian shook his body. He let out a soft snort. With a jerk, solid mustard shields appeared around Wang Xian. His body was giving off a bright yellow glow. Every single dragon scale on him looked extremely solid. Boom boom. 9 tailbones slammed onto the mustard shields surrounding Wang Xian, causing all the shields to vibrate. Yet, there was no trace of cracks on them at all. Is this all you've got? Didn't you want me to try to see how many tailbones I could block? Wang Xian craned up his dragon head with disdainful eyes, staring at Lord Ossian, who was in shock. No, this can't be it. Damn it, it should crack. Disbelief took over the expression on Lord Ossian's face with 5 tailbones straightened up. Poof! A bone-piercing sound was heard when sharp bones went through the top part of the tailbone. 5 tailbones spun with violent movement as they drilled into the earth shield. Bam, bam, bam. A hair-raising sound came from the sky, where 5 tailbones could only drill half a meter into the shield with their full forces. In the face of the few meters thick shields, it was to no avail. In particular, Lord Ossian's heart was slamming against his ribcage when he saw the taunting look on Wang Xian. It's my turn. With a contemptuous look in Wang Xian's eyes, thick thistles and thorns suddenly grew out from the shields. The strips of thistles and thorns went straight to the 5 tailbones and clung to them. What? What kind of attack is this? Upon seeing the thistles and thorns winding up at the tailbone, there was a drastic change in Lord Ossian's expression. From the flame just now, to the earth shield and thistles and thorns, he did not understand how he managed to have so many attacking means. The so-called Lord Ossian is a piece of trash in my eyes. Let me try to see how many tailbones I can withstand. Hee, what irony. Wang Xian slowly reached out his dragon claws. From the earth shields, a strip of thistles and thorns came under his claws. Wang Xian grabbed it and said, "Let me see if you can survive for 10 seconds under my attack." As he spoke, he made a move and struck at Lord Ossian. With an appalling look, 5 of Lord Ossian's tailbones were trembling. To his horror, the power that he was proud of could not even shake off Wang Xian's shackles. A Dan realm expert couldn't be that strong. Lord Ossian appeared a little like a stone as he quickly exclaimed, "You're a budding realm expert." A budding realm. Coldness spread on Wang Xian's face as he raked his dragon claws at him. "No, I'm the leader of the remains. I'm immortal." There was a huge change in the expression of Lord Ossian, and the easiness and calmness from earlier on went missing. He malevolently controlled the remaining 5 tailbones and hurled them at Wang Xian. With a swing, the thistles and thorns in Wang Xian's hand were growing at a frenzied speed. Strips of thistles and thorns instantly grew to over 10 meters long. Dozens of thistles and thorns knocked themselves against 5 tailbones. Bam, bam, bam. Some of them broke away, but there were more that wrapped themselves onto the tailbones. "Do you still have other means of attack?" Wang Xian stared at Lord Ossian with sarcasm as he grabbed Lord Ossian's body with the dragon claws that were emitting golden radiance. "No, no." Lord Ossian was appalled and despaired. The dragon claw of Wang Xian reached Lord Ossian and gripped his body. "An ant that I can crush any time." Wang Xian clenched his dragon claw, and a bone-cracking sound could be heard. The energy of the gold summit on the dragon claws were crushing everything in his body. "No." A desperate voice resonated through the place of the remains. "No, how can our Lord Ossian be killed? This is impossible. I don't believe it. This is not true." At this moment, the group of disciples of the remains who were waiting for their Lord Ossian to display his mightiness were staring with disbelieving eyes. What they had witnessed was the easy defeat of Lord Ossian. It was all too easy. The other party did not even exert much strength, and he could slay their invincible Lord Ossian. All their beliefs were toppled instantly. This was totally different from what they had anticipated. "Today, I'll annihilate the remains." Wang Xian swept his cold gaze at all the remains disciples below him. He opened his mouth and spewed out a ball of daunting flames. Flames fell on them like magma washing down from the sky. "Run for your life!" Frightening screams came from below as the remains disciples let out their desperate growls with terrified faces. They fled in panic, but the flames in the sky pouring down seemed to be endless. This was the true blue destructive power that could wipe out heaven and earth. Wang Xian stood in the sky, 100 meters above the ground, while all the remains disciples were shrouded by the flame wherever it passed. Those who were not even inborns yet perished in the fire. Wang Xian was merciless, as he would not let them off because of how they worked and how cruel they were. Oh no, Lord Ossian is dead. He's been killed. Flee for your life. The inborn experts from the remains who were besieging the Dragonians sensed the formidable strength from behind. All of them were horrified. With terror, they gave up on the siege of the Dragonians and fled desperately away. Do you think you can escape? However, it was impossible for inborn experts to get away from a budding realm expert, not to mention Wang Xian, who was close to the immortal realm. Roar. After a bellow, a ball of flames landed on the last inborn expert of the remains, who was enveloped by the daunting flame even before he could display his golden cicada sheds its shell. After that, the remains were annihilated. No one had expected the remains, one of the 4 main devil sects, to be annihilated within a night. Chapter 518, The Treasures of Remains. Crack, crack, crack. The bright moon illuminated the earth and explosions erupted from various corners of the creepy region. From time to time, one could even hear the sharp cries of the cadaveric crows. A huge, 2-meter skull was constantly devouring skeletons and cadaveric crows. As a stream of will-o-wisps swept across, huge flocks of cadaveric crows and skeletons fell to the ground. The entire region was exceptionally terrifying. Wang Xian waved his arm and a stream of fire dragon energy shrouded over. Several skeletons fell and the will-o-wisps from them entered into the nether skull. Wang Xian could feel the nether skull getting exhilarated as it absorbed the surrounding will-o-wisps with greed. Dragon King, the remains are really strong. The bone puppets they have created could also match us in defense and strength. Mo Yuan led the Dragonians to clean up the battlefield before returning to Wang Xian's side and commenting solemnly. The disciples of the remains together with the bone puppets they had forged gave a total of roughly 70 to 80 inborn experts. On top of that, Lord Ossian could even match 4 to 5 Dan realm experts. Overall, they were incredibly tough. At the very least, if Donghua Sacred Sect didn't have Nai Wushuang, the remains might have chosen to target Donghua Sacred Sect by now and could even have defeated them. It would take roughly 3 ordinary sacred sects to stand up against it. There were 4 main devil sects within Diabolism and Remains was just one of them. The strongest of them all was the Devil Corpse Palace. Emperor Qi was the palace master of Devil Corpse Palace and the strongest existence within Diabolism. Other than the 4 main devil sects, there were also other devil sects. Spirit's Land, Cursed Venom and Crimson Bug were examples of other devil sects below the 4 main devil sects. There were also Dan realm experts within the 4 main devil sects. It was just that they weren't as insane and powerful as Lord Ossian of the Remains. On the surface, Diabolism and the Orthodox sects had equivalent strength. As to whether the alliance of Orthodox sects could eliminate Diabolism, the crux was still the battle between Nai Wushuang and Emperor Qi. These bone-made weapons have been refined and can't undergo further processing. What a shame. Wang Xian looked across the ivory daggers, bone swords and other weapons used by the Remains. They were all level 9 weapons. These bone-made weapons were clearly forged through unique refining methods by the Remains. Their limits had been reached and could no longer be improved. Wang Xian appeared beside the body of Lord Ossian, glanced at his tailbones and shook his head slightly. Go search for the treasures within the Remains and bring all of them here. Wang Xian instructed Mo Yuan and the Dragonians while he remained to control the nether skull absorbing the will-o-wisps. The nether skull was a rather mystical spiritual weapon. Now that Wang Xian had mastered the arts of forging spiritual equipment, he still couldn't decipher how it was created. Vaguely, he felt this involved spirit arrays. From the staff of Ajaya, Wang Xian could also feel the presence of spirit arrays. The nether skull constantly absorbed the will-o-wisps from the bones around him. The will-o-wisps from the bodies of the experts from the Remains were being sucked dry. In the end, the nether skull came before the corpse of Lord Ossian. Its teeth were chattering and it seemed to be exceptionally excited. Dense and terrifying vibes came from the nether skull as it landed on the tailbones of Lord Ossian. The tailbones were cracking and streams of dense will-o-wisps entered into the nether skull. BZZ BZZ. The nether skull started to expand to 2 meters once again. However, 2 meters wasn't its limit as it continued to grow at an astonishing pace. In the hands of the deity lady from Nether Flame, the limit of the nether skull was 3 meters. At this point, the nether skull had also grown to 3 meters. When it reached 3 meters, the nether skull had only absorbed the 3rd tailbone. There were another 7 to go. Streams of dense will-o-wisps gushed into the nether skull. As the last tailbone was turned to ashes, the entire nether skull had grown to over 5 meters. The 5-meter skull hovered in the air. At its eyes, eerie will-o-wisps were burning and one could feel a creepy and evil aura coming from it. Wang Xian waved his arm and the nether skull returned to his hands, reverting to the size of a fist in the process. The effects of the nether skull were a little like the Dragon Ball. They could both be released to attack. However, the Dragon Ball was much easier to control as compared to the nether skull. If the Dragon Ball reached level 12, he would have little use for the nether skull. Even so, it was still a little weak. Dragon King, we have located where the remains kept their treasures. At this moment, Wang Xian heard Mo Yuan. Wang Xian moved and instantly arrived in the middle of the platform used for sacrificial rituals. Within the structure, will-o-wisps were burning. There was also a huge 5-meter skull without any flesh and blood that was being enshrined. The treasure cove was located at the lowest level. Wang Xian jumped in and saw Mo Yuan and the Dragonians looking at the items before them. Dragon King, this should be the most important treasure cove of the remains. The area was dark with small will-o-wisps hovering, illuminating the area. The underground area wasn't big and spanned only 1,000 square meters or so. There were several racks with skeletons hung on them. These skeletons were also glowing with a dull shade. Wang Xian looked across and realized these were the bones of experts. They were useless to him. This is. Wang Xian walked to the left and saw pieces of black metal being placed on the rack neatly. Devil Shadow Steel, level 10. Devil Metal Steel. Inborn level materials. Excitement beamed in Wang Xian's eyes. There were over 100 pieces of devil steel and each was the size of a human head. Devil attribute inborn level materials. I can use them to forge equipment. Wang Xian continued moving deeper and saw masks made of human skin hung on the walls. These masks could totally change one's appearance. In the middle, there was a blood-red mask emitting a devilish vibe. Devil Shadow Mask, level 10. Devil Shadow Mask. Wang Xian raised an eyebrow. He removed it and put it over his face. Instantly, energy welled up and a shadow of him appeared beside him. The shadow looked a little illusory. If he could catch his opponent by surprise, the effects would be tremendous. What an interesting mask. Devil Shadow Mask. Is this made from the devil metal steel? Wang Xian pondered as he continued looking around. Tenacious Devil Stone, level 10. More inborn level materials. Looking ahead, a pile of stones that were glowing dimly appeared before his sight. There were over 50 pieces and Wang Xian was elated. Walking to the middle, Wang Xian found several thick books. On them, the word remains was written in an ancient-looking font. This is the art of creating bone puppets. Wang Xian stared fervently at a book before flipping it open. Bones have spirituality. Refining them with special materials can forge powerful and terrifying bone puppets. The method of forging bone puppets was recorded within. Besides that, the extraction technique of the human mask was also recorded, including the ability to shed one's skin to escape. Wang Xian took a look and shook his head. The crafting of bone puppets was too brutal. One had to use the bones of living creatures that had just passed away or the bones of a living human. Chapter 519, The World is Shocked, 1. Wang Xian burned all their books away since the remains art of cultivation was nothing useful. He looked around, noticing only bones occupying most of the areas. Other than that, it was the raw material for refining the bone puppets. The only relatively high-value stuff was probably a devil spiritual bead, a level 11 devil spiritual bead. However, the devil spiritual bead was useless to him, except for making weapons or giving it to Mo Qinglong. Take all the material with us and go. Wang Xian ordered the Dragonians. Yes, Dragon King. Mo Yuan beckoned to some Dragonians, wrapping all the inborn materials up. Dragon King, we found some vital information. Just as they came to the ground, Wang Xian saw Long Qi, and the rest walked out from a room by the side with thrilled faces. What is it? Seeing their excited expressions, Wang Xian asked this with his curiosity piqued. It's about Omniscient Group. Unexpectedly, Omniscient Group was actually established by the remains. They infiltrated the underworld with painted skins and human masks with 50 years of development. Shenling Information Technology was their base camp. I even have a piece of information regarding the top management of Omniscient Group. The top management was all diehard subordinates groomed by the remains. They are not cultivators but completely ordinary people. If we could control the top management, we could control the entire Omniscient Group. Long Qi was elated as he continued to Wang Xian. All the people in the underworld would not have expected that Omniscient Group is controlled by a group of ordinary people. Hence, things turned out to be this way. Besides, they have access to a team of powerful computer masters who can do surveillance on any places. In addition, there are satellites. As long as the signal is clear, we can see anywhere we want. Is that so? A trace of surprise flashed in Wang Xian's eyes. So, if we control the top management, we can control Omniscient Group? Yes, the internal department of Omniscient Group has very tight control. Not even the middle-level staff know the location of the base of Omniscient Group. They will deliver the message through internal channels, reporting up level by level. As such, once we have access to higher management, it will be as good as controlling the entire Omniscient Group. Long Qi nodded his head with force. Mo Yuan, you'll try to gain control of Omniscient Group with Long Qi and the rest. I hope you guys succeed. Wang Xian gave commands to Mo Yuan immediately. Yes, Dragon King. As long as we can find the people, we'll be able to seize control. Sure, I'll wait for your good news. Wang Xian smiled as he walked outside. When he stepped out of the remains land, he spun around and swept a look at the creepy and daunting forest. Wang Xian made a swift move and hovered to the sky. With a dragon ball in his mouth, Wang Xian opened his mouth and spat below. Columns of flames fell, encompassing an area spanning a dozen meters in an instant. Wang Xian, again, spewed flames in the other direction. Within a minute, the entire remains land was shrouded in intense heat as the flames rose and spread out to the surroundings. With swift action, Wang Xian came to the border of the land and set up a barrier. That meant that the flame would automatically extinguish itself once the entire remains land was totally burned down to ashes. The entire region spanned over a radius of about 20 kilometers. The black woods in this forest carried traces of toxins, so he wanted to get rid of this entire place. When the fire rose, Wang Xian headed towards Ling City with a beaming face. The blazing fire behind him was burning even more fiercely than before as it lit up the entire sky. Ling City was a city that never slept. The nightlife over there could be comparable to those first-tier cities. As a city with a high crime rate, many people were wandering outside at night. When Wang Xian arrived at Ling City half an hour later, those wandering night owls suddenly realized the sky was much brighter. What's going on? Why is the sky lit up? A few young people outside looked up curiously as they noticed the sky was brighter than before. That is the direction of the Fateless Forest. It's the Fateless Forest. There is a fire over there now. Why is that forest on fire? The Fateless Forest is quite damp. What a blazing flame. The brightness is taking over the sky. I guess the range of land on fire should spread over 10 kilometers. Everyone was shocked, including one of the martial artists who was looking towards the direction of the Fateless Forest with questions on his face. What's going on? Why is there such a huge fire? The base camp of the remains is in the Fateless Forest, but why would there be fire? Some martial artists cast their gazes over with suspicious looks. The Fateless Forest covered hundreds of kilometers. Still, the region that was on fire was at least 10 to 20 kilometers. Such a large surface area of fire had erupted, and people of the remains would not have missed out. If they found out, why would they let the fire burn by itself? Could something have happened to the remains over there? Some of the martial artists pondered. Master, the fateless forest is on huge fire. It's odd. Back on a rooftop of one of the five-star hotels in Ling City, dozens of middle-aged and old men were standing around as they gazed in the direction of the fateless forest with quizzical expressions. It is indeed strange. Someone from the underworld mentioned that the Dragon King, along with some of the disciples of Dragon Sect, entered the fateless forest. Now that the forest is on fire, could this have to do with the Dragon King and the rest? The old man in the center revealed a pondering look. The spiritual wind sect, a first-class force, was just passing by this area after the alliance of the orthodox sects had ended during the day. Since it was too late to leave, they decided to stay put at Ling City for a night. There is absolutely no reason for such a great fire to break out in the fateless forest. A middle-aged man frowned. Could it be the Dragon Sect and the remains developed some conflicts? Or it's more than meets the eye, an old man murmured. Why don't we go and check it out? Given our speed, not even the inborn experts of the remains could catch up to us, said an old man from Spiritual Wind Sect suddenly. Spiritual Wind Sect's cultivation was wind attributed. Hence, their forte was in their speed. Compared with the people in the underworld, the speed of the experts in the ancestral sects of Spiritual Wind Sect could be ranked within the top 3. Great, let's go and check it out. Several elders hesitated before they nodded. You guys wait over here. We will be right back. 4 inborn experts of Spiritual Wind Sect swept up swift movements just like a blast of wind as they flitted towards the fateless forest. Their speed surpassed all their peer inborn experts. To an inborn expert, one could take less than 20 minutes to travel dozens of kilometers. But the 4 inborn experts of Spiritual Wind Sect were much faster. In less than 10 minutes, the quartet came to the edge of the fire. They flapped their phoenix wings at their backs as they flew ahead. The soil over here is different from other places. Even the trees too. This should be the territory of remains. They noticed that the region where the fire was burning was different from its surroundings. After some exchanges of gazes, there were traces of horror hidden in their eyes. With some hesitation, they continued to hover towards the center. That is. Gosh. This was supposed to be the site of the remains. Why has it turned to some ruins now? Could it be? An unbelievable idea began to form in their heads as they stared blankly below at the ground covered with daunting bones. Stone houses were radiating the fiery red glow of flames, and charred bodies were lying on the floor. Could it be that the remains have been annihilated? Chapter 520. The world is shocked. Could it be that the remains have been annihilated? An unbelievable thought surfaced in the minds of the 4 experts from the Spiritual Wind Sect. They stood at the base of the remains that had been raised while staring blankly at the surroundings. When they looked across, they couldn't help but gasp. Where are the remains? That's one of the 4 strongest devil sect. It's even stronger than an ordinary sacred sect, and yet it has now been razed to the ground. Who did this? Who is capable of doing this? An old man looked around in shock. Looking at the corpses on the ground, he hesitated for a moment before jumping into the middle of the flames. Ka. As he landed on the bones, sounds of bones cracking gave him chills. He walked towards the structure in the middle and saw the sacrificial ritual platform with the word remains engraved prominently on it. Around them, there were no longer any signs of life. All the people had died. The old man flew into the sky and suddenly noticed a huge body below him. That was the body of a young man with 10 terrifying tailbones. At this moment, the tailbone scattered into ashes when a gentle breeze blew past. Those 10 tailbones. That must be the corpse of the Lord of the Remains. Astonishment was written all over the old man's face as he mumbled with a shaky voice. The remains being annihilated is a piece of good news for all orthodox sects. The only question would be who would have done so. The other old man by the side sank into deep thought. He had a conjecture in mind, but he wasn't certain. In the underworld, who would be capable of this? An old man looked ahead before exchanging glances with the others. Only the Dragon King and his subordinates have entered this place today. Moreover, Only the Dragon King is capable of annihilating the remains in the underworld at this moment. The Dragon King of Dragon Sect? This. Why did he want to annihilate the remains? Now that he has a deep feud with Donghua Sacred Sect, would he dare to offend the Devil Sects too? An old man shook his head in disbelief. Becoming the enemy of Donghua Sacred Sect and diabolism. Could it be that the Dragon King is trying to make the whole world his enemy? Making the whole world his enemy. He is really making everyone his enemy. The Dragon King's actions aren't something we can predict. He has offended the leader of the orthodox sects and annihilated the remains from diabolism in the same day. Arrogance. Really arrogant. Let's go. If the people of the underworld are to learn about this, they probably will be shocked and stirred. Donghua Sacred Sect is going to be embarrassed in this matter. The few of them conversed and took a further glance at the base of the remains that was still shrouded in flames. With shocked and complicated feelings, they headed back towards Ling City. Along the way, they saw two inborn experts dashing past them. They didn't converse and simply went on their own way. Night. The entire world had quietened down. Activity on the forum of the Underworld website had also died down deep into the night. The critiques of the Dragon King and the Dragon Sect had also paused for the moment. However, a thread suddenly appeared deep into the night. The remains have been annihilated. This thread came with pictures of the huge fire in the base of the remains and the corpses within the area. When this piece of news was announced, it didn't cause a huge ruckus at night. Nonetheless, there were still 1,000 comments. On the second morning, Wang Xian headed to the floating island near Rivertown after waking up. Looking at the devil metal steel and tenacious devil stone on the ground, he hesitated for a moment before starting to craft weapons. I hope I can succeed. After I craft this inborn spiritual equipment, the Dragonians will be invincible among inborn experts with them. Wang Xian's lips curved into a smile as anticipation beamed in his eyes. At this moment, what Wang Xian didn't know was that his actions yesterday had shocked the world. Late at night, when the thread of the remains being annihilated was posted, it only drew the attention of 1,000+ people. Some of them didn't believe it while others had doubts in mind. Some sects and experts nearing the Ling City sent their men over out of curiosity. When they entered the nest of the remains and saw the situation, they couldn't help but be astonished. Early in the morning, the news of the remains being annihilated had truly kicked up a storm. The remains, one of the 4 strongest devil sects, has been annihilated. Flames have raised through their base and all the experts of the remains are dead. This has been verified. Many people might not have believed the news last night about the remains being annihilated. We are located near the base of the remains. After heading there, we are sure to say that the remains have indeed been annihilated. Shocking. The base of the remains was reduced to ruins in a single night. Who could have annihilated the remains? The news of the remains being annihilated soon spread like wildfire. The remains was one of the 4 strongest devil sects. It was terrifying and strong. Yet, they had been annihilated. Many people in the underworld couldn't help but cheer on the news of them being annihilated. The evil and brutal acts of the remains had long infuriated many sects and families in the underworld. While they were celebrating the annihilation of the remains, the question of who had annihilated them was also thrown out. Who could have annihilated one of the 4 strongest devil sects? Who? When questions of this nature were posted, many people recalled the thread about the Dragon King of Dragon Sect last night. The Dragon King of Dragon Sect led a group of disciples with the disciple of the remains into the fateless forest. The thread starter saw the Dragon King headed towards the base of the remains with the disciples of the remains. Soon, news of the remains being annihilated came. At the thought of this, their jaws dropped and disbelief filled their faces. Could it be that the Dragon King was the one who annihilated the remains? What a terrifying thought. In the current underworld, Donghua Sacred Sect could have annihilated the remains. Dragon Sect is also capable of doing so. Considering that the alliance of the orthodox sects was formed yesterday, Donghua Sacred Sect wouldn't have been the one who was responsible. On the other hand, there was news of the Dragon King leading his disciples into the base of the remains. The conclusion is clear. Fuck. It's almost 100% certain that the Dragon King was the one who annihilated the remains. This Dragon King is simply too incredible. Aren't there people accusing the Dragon sect of joining diabolism? Damn. What a preposterous claim. In my view, considering the Dragon King's personality, he would never join diabolism. I believe it was Donghua Sacred Sect who accused Dragon Sect of joining diabolism and that they will be annihilating the Dragon Sect. I, the Dragon King, don't have to explain my actions to you. I can choose to become an enemy to the leader of the alliance of the orthodox sects, Donghua Sacred Sect. At the same time, I can annihilate the remains from diabolism as I wish. Damn. The Dragon King is too darned domineering. A day ago, everyone was still criticizing the Dragon King of Dragon Sect. What about today? Alright, I admit I was one of them. Here, I would like to say something. Dragon Sect is mighty. The Dragon King is domineering. Through this, the Dragon King has undoubtedly given a slap to all those who criticized him yesterday. At the same time, they gave a slap to Donghua Sacred Sect. This speed of slapping those who criticized them is too darned quick.